Well, good morning and welcome to the glorious California sunshine once again, where we are live and direct from the WeatherTech Raceway here at Laguna Seca for day 2 of Velocity Invitational. I'm Kev Harris. I'm pleased to say once again I'm joined by Kiri Bloor, Adam Andretti and Johnny Green. And Kiri, we are set for a fantastic day here, aren't we?
Set for another fantastic day of action and a whole lot more. So make sure you stick with us for the full day, because we have got some incredible cars, all the ones that you saw yesterday and some more. Now, Adam, yesterday was just fantastic, from Formula One cars to Le Mans cars. What was your standout moment of the day?
Oh, I mean, the standout moments for me of the day were getting to see Mika Hakkinen back in his World Championship winning McLaren. That was pretty special, and it's also special to see that he really hasn't missed much of a beat. He's still very fit, and I feel just as fast as he ever has been, because he came clicking up through the straightaway here and going through the gearbox like it never happened. And then also to see the baggers out here too, you know, with the bikes, you know, Moto America, you wouldn't expect that at a vintage event. So those were a couple of my big highlights for yesterday. It was a lot of fun though. Looking forward to today.
Yeah, I bet you are indeed. Now, we just got a little word that they're taking the covers off behind, which shows that Laguna Seca is waking up.
Yeah, Laguna Seca is waking up. We've got a lot to look forward to today. So as we look ahead to today's schedule, Johnny, what are we thinking about the highlights for you?
Well, to be honest, after yesterday, everything is a highlight. I mean, for me, I'm looking again forward to the historic Trans Am, always my favourite, and the sound that they made as they roared down the straight past our commentary position was sensational, and the race they put on. If they do that again, loving it. But I also like this eagle behind us, and that's a great story too. But there's so much to look at and see and hear. It's great.
Yeah, historic Trans Ams are coming up, about 25 of them on the grid from 1966 to 1975-ish, something like that. They are phenomenal. They will bring the house down. But from the past to the future as well, Adam, I know just a moment or two ago you were racing over there to take a look at the Zinger, which is just a car of the future. That has to be seen. Tell us about that.
It's an incredible machine over there, the Zinger group. I just met the head electronics. He was warming it up, and he gave it a few quick wraps of the throttle for us. A 2.8-liter twin-turbo V8. You know, makes 950 horsepower.
From a car that has basically grown and evolved.
Exactly. It's really kind of unique to just listen to that story, and then you go from that, and then you know, maybe the future will be. I would like to see what would take that on the future. Like we have the Mustangs and Minis later.
Yes.
That David versus Goliath, because I believe that's got a Goliath of the future over there.
Mustangs versus Mini, Johnny. Looking forward to that.
Well, we saw it in the night. Now we're going to see it in the day. And by the way, the Minis held their own against the mighty muscle cars, and I think they'll do it again.
Yeah, I think they will do it again. Probably high time we send these guys off.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Johnny and Adam. We'll see you in the commentary booth. I know they're going to be out doing interviews, but thank you so much, guys. We'll be hearing them throughout the day, and actually they're going to be released from the commentary booth to be speaking to some of the legends that are around here, and there are plenty. Wayne Rainey hopefully will be here a bit later on, and we'll be getting interviews from some of the F1 legends like Stefan Johansson, and as I said, a whole lot more. So it is a fantastic day in store, and the gorgeous, as you said, California sunshine.
Yeah, it's
more of a perfect
It's
day.
beaming down on us. We are live, so you do still have time to get here if you want to. There are drive-up tickets available. It's a phenomenal family day out, so please do come down and see what they've laid on here. We're standing on the grass, we're standing on the lawn. It's like we're back in Henley-on-Thames or somewhere. White picket fences, lawn. It's a beautiful scene. The Sip and Savour Taylor Farms Pavilion is behind us, so lots to do and lots of activities for the kids around here, Kiri.
Yeah, I saw you causing mischief around yesterday. Yeah. We will be in velocity lane, so as all of the cars are heading out on track, we'll be speaking to all the drivers and owners of the cars. So you'll be getting a full insight into what those cars are and how they came in the hands of many of the drivers and owners. It's a fascinating story. Lots of them so passionate, and you know, followed those cars for years, and have finally got their hands on them, and then able to show you at home and share their experiences. And I think that's what's really important, isn't it? That they're just enjoying sharing the experience.
Yeah, exactly. If you speak to anyone down here, they always say that they don't own the car, they're just a custodian of it. They're looking after it just to show it to the people, and that's what today is all about. And excitingly as well, some of the oldest cars that we'll see here, the pre-war ragtime racers are here once again. Ed Archer and his team down there are just phenomenal, so please come down, please come and see them. But I think, fueled up on their coffee, Johnny and Adam.
I just saw Johnny running up those stairs, so we might give him one more second before, because he went that way. I think he might have got a bit lost on the way. You never know with Johnny, you never know indeed. All right, I think they might be settled and ready in their position, so we'll hand over to the commentary. Myself and Kev will see you out and about around Laguna Seca.
Yes, we've hot-footed it to the booth. And this is the view looking over Laguna Seca. In fact, you can see the Monterey Bay in the background. It's a beautiful morning, Adam.
It is a beautiful morning, and yes, you can see very clearly the bay. The fog is lifted here. It's just absolutely gorgeous. Cars are on track. None of the race cars right now, just luxury cars out there blowing off the track, so to speak. Maybe getting a little heat built into it so that when we are ready to pull the trigger with our first group of the day, that we are ready to go, which I believe our first group is what, Group 2 today?
Yes, it is, Group 2. Their feature race for 1948 to 1957 sports and sports car race cars. Here's a look at what we've got coming up, and as we said, luxury collection on track now. Our first group race will be Group 2. That'll be followed by McLaren Automotive, and that's a great display of McLaren-only cars. And, of course, that's a great addition because McLaren have a huge presence here with both their Formula One cars, having the CEO here with Zach Brown, having the mighty Mika Hakkinen, who you mentioned. Then the ragtime races, if you don't know about that, that's a great exhibition. And then we go to Group 3 for 57-61 sports car races. And then Group 1, the pre-war. Looking forward to that. We were talking to one of the drivers earlier this morning about that. That's about 10:15. And then McLaren Racing. We'll get to see those Formula One cars. Pato O'Ward, the IndyCar driver who races for McLaren, and Mika Hakkinen. And we saw Zach Brown actually at the wheel of his own race car, if you will, yesterday. And he did a pretty handy job. And it impressed Pato O'Ward. And then Group 4A, 57-65 GT cars over 2.5 litres. And then the baggers and the superbikes following that. But plenty more action as we turn to what we call our luxury collection. And this is a group based in California, selling exotic cars and here exhibiting them, and also a chance, I'm sure, for a passenger or two to get a thrill ride.
Absolutely. You're looking right there. This is a McLaren Senna. This is one of the hypercars of the world. This was obviously McLaren's version of the hypercar, paying homage to the great world champion Ayrton Senna, who drove to 3 fantastic world championships inside of a McLaren Formula One car. Pays great homage to him. It's been wonderful to watch it circulate around here under the watchful eye of some pro drivers, giving people rides and so on and so forth. Not sure exactly who the owner is of that vehicle, but I'm sure they love life in that ride. They're fun cars. I mean, you can see it's an active rear wing, so when he climbs onto the brakes, you'll see the rear wing throw forward like an anchor. And honestly, it looks like the same hydraulic system, Jonathan, that you would have on a 747 on the wing flaps. It's just got so much actuation to it.
Yeah, and in all seriousness, McLarens are rare, but this is a unicorn. A Senna McLaren is so rare. I've seen one only other. I think I saw it parked up at Barber Motorsports once. Yeah, and people were looking at it kind of like, is that? And I said, yes, it is.
Exactly, because you're going to see them at racetracks. This isn't something you see at the supermarket, folks.
Nah.
This is something that, when you're at a racetrack, that's when you stand a chance of finding one of these Sennas. And as Jonathan said, a true unicorn, and we are so fortunate. Place like here at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca, Velocity Invitational, phenomenal event, attracts such beautiful, beautiful machinery.
So, and there's a pretty car. That's the Spider. Very nice.
I believe those are the 720s. Don't have that 100% confirmed, but I believe that's what they are. Coming down through the corkscrew here.
And McLaren have actually built up a really strong base. They had a base in New York. They've now just opened another base, and I say base, but another dealership stroke sales forecourt in Dallas. So they've got a big presence in Dallas. They use the Circuit of the Americas. I've seen them down there testing cars and putting on cars, doing commercials and so on. So McLaren are gaining a much bigger presence, and I think Zach Brown, because he's American with United Autosports, I think is wanting to proliferate the American market better than they've done before, because of course Porsche and Ferrari have dominated, so too Lamborghini, and McLaren bit by bit they know where there's some potential customers, and McLaren, because it's not a Ferrari, and that's no disrespect to that, but because it's slightly different, but it is beautifully made with the same love and care and design innovations that some of the finest Ferraris and Lamborghinis are. McLaren have pushed their way into a very tough market in the last 20 years and have done very well.
Oh, very much so. I echo those exact sentiments, because the group there at McLaren Automotive has done a phenomenal job of not only putting out the product, but infiltrating that U.S. market, which is not easy. And they've done it with just, like you said, just super products, stupendous products, stuff that they can definitely be very proud of. You mentioned Circuit of the Americas. I know for a fact that they're there this weekend. McLaren is doing their quote-unquote like race weekends, if you will. And so they do these events for the owners, and you can, for high-end customers, they come rent Senna GTRs, and they do laps, and they have professional instructors, drivers, sit down with the data and download with the data and talk about where they can pick up time, where they're losing time, and they get to lay the data over that pro driver's data. So I know that like you said, they're very heavily involved, and Texas is a big place. It's booming as far as its economy, and racing is going very, very strong over there as well. So it only makes sense. But had a strong presence here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, not only for an event like the Velocity Invitational, but they do also their track day events here, because this is a legendary circuit and just such a great place to get around. I mean, it really gets your attention when you're behind the wheel of one of these monsters.
Oh, no question about it. So this is our first display or exhibition to start the day off early here at Laguna Seca. Wherever you're tuning in around the world, we'll be with you all day. And we've got exhibitions, races, and plenty also going on off-track. We also, this is part of our sort of remit here, is to get as many people who are involved in both driving the cars and organising these cars to talk about them. So as you saw, we've got Kev and Kiri, and they'll be effectively beetling around the paddock, just talking to some interesting folk. Jeff O'Neill, who organises this event, has a very interesting Rolodex of friends who share his passion, as does California. And I would argue, and I'm going to be careful here from somebody who's deep in the heart of Indianapolis, but I would argue that California is one of the hotbeds for both historic racing and the love of racing here in America.
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt. I mean, it's just there's so many things that feed to that. First of all, a lot of the owners of these vehicles, this is the part of the country that they live in. Like a good friend of ours, Eric Joyner, for example. This is where he has home, and we had Ross Merrill up here. This is home for him. So there's so many of these individuals involved, that are on this side, and then those that aren't. Let's just face it. I have. We know some people from Indianapolis and from the Northeast that are here, and excuse to get out of that climate right now is to get out here. So absolutely, and even in August, when we're out here for the other historic events, you're looking at, that's a good time to get out of the steamy weather of Indianapolis too, to get out here to this beautiful Northern California climate. But yeah, this is the hotbed for many, many reasons, and so much of it is the history that you mentioned so often, Jonathan. This is where the imports came in. This is where really the production-based, hardcore, nose-to-tail racing, really had its big birthplace and start was here.
Well, I would argue that when Enzo impolitely described us British as garagistas, I would argue that actually California was full of just that. Tinkering garagistas who took famous cars or pulled apart a Jaguar XK or whatever it might be, or took a Ferrari and built their own, Huffaker. Some of these great guys, obviously Gurney, Carroll Shelby, Dan Gurney, all of these guys, Jim Hall, they were tinkerers and garagistas, as they impolitely are termed, but those tiny garagistas also took on the mic and started beating the Ferraris and started beating the mighty European cars that came over here and dominated in the early days.
I'd be interested to know from Stefan, Johansson, because he had such a great relationship with the great Enzo Ferrari. But I would love that, because I've heard some takes on Enzo, because he would say those things, right? Yeah. And I believe from what I heard from others was he would say those things because he wanted the challenges. He wanted to offend whole nations so that they would want to come attack him and his race cars. And I don't know how much truth there is to that, but I've heard it from more than one individual. Stefan, who knew the man so well, if there is any kind of validity behind that claim, but it just sounds to me like the ultimate competitor wanted you all to step up and bring something to the game.
Yeah, for Enzo, it was all about the car, the love of the car. The drivers were secondary. That's not a good look.
They're a piece of meat, right?
Well, That's a tough expression, but they were expendable in his mind.
Yes.
And unfortunately, back in those days, it happened that way.
Yeah.
He wanted to go fast, he wanted to win, and testing, and really the driver was secondary to whatever the car was doing. But that said, he also demanded to have the best drivers, John Surtees, many others back in those days, and so on and so forth.
Phil Hill.
Exactly. Through those days,
Right.
he wanted the best, and that's what made that Ford versus Ferrari so good, because Ford picked up on that and went, right, I will buy the best drivers known to man, including Uncle Mario, and I will go and race him basically I will take him on in his own game.
Right, and they did so successfully, and it makes great stories for us to be able to tell and observe, and obviously makes for great cinema. And look at the family.
She's up there. She's going to get to the corkscrew. Go, girl!
This is big family time here, and that was something.
Brother's coming.
Yeah, he is.
No, I'm not waiting for my sister.
That's what we heard from Jeff O'Neill yesterday, is how much they love family here, and it really shows. I mean, they have little mini soapbox derby races that there in the paddock area, and obviously this is a playground.
Come on, little fella, you've got the makings of this. You can catch her.
This is a state park, so there's plenty to do here.
Yeah, and these are hallowed hills in many ways. The Monterey Hills, it really is the place to be. Looking over Pebble Beach, let's think about that for a second. You're looking over the Monterey Bay in California, one of the most sought-after places. You've got Carmel by the sea, Pebble Beach just across the way. It really is the paradise. This is the playground of California, isn't it?
Yeah, my dad would say when they were growing up in Italy, they would hear of this place in America, and it was a paradisa.
The Paradisa.
The Paradisa of California. And
now we look at Italy like that.
Right. But he told that to me once. Back in the year 2001, I moved out here to Northern California, not in the Bay Area. I was actually in Sacramento, just around Sacramento, Roseville, Lake Folsom, Folsom Lake area, and it was beautiful. I loved it. It was a great year, of my life. But I remember I was very nervous about making the jump. I was only, in my early 20s, and
she won. She made it to the flag first.
She did. And I remember him saying, he goes, we used to dream of a place in America called Paradisa, California. So
that's funny.
And that's what got me excited about being out here.
Beautiful day. Absolutely gorgeous. And I think it's actually going to be warmer. And I know a lot of you tuning in, probably in Great Britain, will be thinking, gosh, is that what it's like in November in California? Well, yes, it is.
It's not too different from what it's like in Austin, Texas right now either, where you live.
It's pretty similar right now.
Yeah,
it'll get a little colder in Austin. We had a freeze last year.
That's right, you did.
It went nuts. We didn't have water for like a month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Exposing the infrastructure.
It was, yes. They weren't so proud of their private grid back then. Let's head down to the paddock. Kiri is down there. What have you got, Kiri?
Let's head down to the paddock. Kiri is down there. What have you got?
Well, I think you can hear me down here. It's already very noisy. A good Sunday morning to you, wherever you are around the world. All right, well, we're in Velocity Lane for the first of our cars out on track in the actual racing category. So the 1948 to 1957 sports car category. Now, this is a Jaguar C-Type. It was actually a Works Le Mans car. Joining me is Nick Price. He's car number 21. Now, Nick, can you tell me a little bit of history about this car and how on earth you managed to get such a wonderful car in your hands?
Absolutely. I'm very fortunate to drive Tom Price's car, and I do want to give a shout out to our crew members, Sean Thomas and Chase, who rebuilt the clutch here a couple times this weekend. So first want to start with that, but amazing car to drive, handles like a beauty, likes to dance on you, and it's an absolute privilege to drive here this weekend.
Yeah, I bet. Now, we talked a little bit earlier on about this being a Le Mans car. Something like this is really steeped in racing history.
Absolutely. The C-Type has been just a gem in history, and we feel so lucky to have it here on track.
All right, well, talk to me about you heading out onto Laguna Seca in this car. It's very nerve-wracking.
I think this track is so fun. It has such an opportunity to grow on each corner, and it's an absolute amazing track. The corkscrew is a blast in the C-Type, and again, just so happy to be here. Thank you to Jeff O'Neill for throwing such a great event.
All right, listen, enjoy it out there. We'll see you out there in a bit. Let's just head up here and have a look. We are going to get you some more interviews. Okay, so this is car 101. This is Don. Actually, I don't know whether Don will be able to hear us because he's just about to start his engine up. I'm going to walk around this way, and I'm guessing Don isn't going to be able to hear us, but I'm going to step in and say good morning to Don. Can you tell us anything about this car if you can hear me?
We're going to give it all we got today.
Enjoy it out there, Don. All right, well, we're heading up. It's A14. This is Dennis Adair. Good morning, Dennis. Can you tell us about this car?
Doing okay. It's a 55 Elva, so it's probably old for the smallest bore out here. No, he's a little smaller bore, but I'm the next smallest car.
Fantastic. Now that just gives you an idea of how noisy it is down here. They cannot hear a single word. So I'm not going to jump into any more interviews. What you're looking at now is car 115. That's Wesley who's driving that. And that's a Chevrolet Minstrel. So Wesley, give us a wave. He's looking a little nervous actually heading out there. Now John Moat as well, sitting here. I don't know whether John can hear us. I'm going to say good morning, John. How are you feeling?
Great, thank you.
Looking forward to heading out onto the track?
I'm ready, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Had a couple of good runs so far and can't wait to get out there.
Now, John, can you tell us a little bit about this car, where it's been racing before, the history of it?
Well, its very first race was the very first race in California sports car at Santa Ana Blimp Hangar. And in that race, it competed against Phil Hill, who spun on the very first lap and then came back to pass the entire field to finish second, and this car finished fifth.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, enjoy it out there. All right, well, we're going to keep walking up the line. Car 33 there is James off. We're getting the tap on the watch. We need to move out the way, so I'm going to step out this way because I'm causing mischief. We'll leave Tony giving you those gorgeous shots, and I'll hand you up to the commentators.
Thank you, Kiri. Yes, she was about to introduce James Alder, but we know all about him because he came and joined us yesterday.
He won't be lost for words, I know that.
No, he won't.
But it
Great character.
It's a great character. We love having him around, and he's out there focused for sure. I know that he was very happy with his race yesterday. He was really excited to tell us about how well his race went yesterday. So hopefully this is the way they kick off today for himself.
Yeah, interestingly enough, why it's so important, this group from 48 to 57, is this is basically when racing began here in this area of Monterey. It didn't begin at Laguna Seca. It began down on what was called the Pebble Beach road races, effectively, and they were around, or the Pebble Beach road races that ran around both Del Monte Forest, which is just down the road. We went there for our coffee this morning, and this is very much the cars that started it all. And in fact, that James Alder bright white XK120 actually won the first ever Pebble Beach race back in 1951, and 1950, excuse me. And then for the first 5 years, they did do the Pebble Beach races, but of course it was around the forests and it was a little bit iffy, to say the least, as were so many. So that's why, obviously, Laguna Seca was then sanctioned and built, and so that they could carry on the tradition of racing these cars, but come up here to Laguna Seca, and then they moved it about. They moved the race about 10 miles up the hills and into the mountains, and obviously not many wealthy houses back then, so it was the perfect place to keep away from Monterey and not disturb anybody, but also be close enough to the town of both Monterey and Carmel by the sea, and that's when it all began.
Well, we're so fortunate for that, right? I mean, we're still reaping the benefits of that passion from so many years ago and generations ago, and it's been passed on. And as we heard from Ross Merrill yesterday, and the foundation, and it's continuing, and it's gonna continue for many generations on. I raced with his son Thomas. I could see Thomas taking a serious active interest into this once his racing career calms down and he wants to move on and other things in his life, and so I could totally see that this place being protected for many, many years to come and only getting better. We heard of some of the improvements that they want to make, and possible world-class karting track coming to this facility, which would only attract some of the best karting people in the world here, which is just the beginning again. This place seems to be all about the beginnings that you just spoke about, but if they bring that kind of facility here, those are the beginnings of the great, great, great talents that we get to enjoy for many years to come.
Yeah, and if I tell you, as you look at that XK120, that the first winner of the Pebble Beach races was a certain fella by the name of Phil Hill.
That's a guy that sounds familiar. I think there's a Hill here. I believe we have a Derek
Hill here this weekend, yeah.
So, yeah, I love the Hill family. They're a pillar of American motorsports for many reasons. And I got to know Phil Hill, in the last 20 years of his life, and through other various events that, Mercedes-Benz would put on and hire him to be the celebrity driver there. And what a wonderful character. And he would bring his slideshow with him. And his slideshow, if you were ever privileged enough to be around Phil Hill and his slideshow, it was something absolutely special because he had a passion for photography. And so throughout his career, he took his own pictures of everything.
Wow.
So just amazing, amazing chronicle of his career. Jonathan, they're coming through the chute from 11 to 12 to start our first race of the day, my friend.
Let's get ready. It's Group 2, 1948 to 1957 sports and sports racing cars. And away we go. Out of 12, the pace car comes off. It's a fine morning here in Monterey. We are underway for our Velocity Invitational Group 2. Here we go. Across the strip they come, led by the number 9. And a host of absolutely glorious cars.
James Alder there in like 5th place. Got a good start. Got a nice little block from another XK120 right there that came down on that. But that was a really good run. Looks like maybe that was Lars that came down to the inside there. But they're going to have a good race. He was speaking of that yesterday. That they had a nice race going yesterday, and I believe it's already starting here today between Lars Mapstead and James Alder and those two beautiful XK120s.
Yeah, in fact, that Parkinson's Special that leads was one of the first, or the actual Parkinson Special as it's called, was originally a rare aluminium body 1949 Jaguar XK120 Roadster, and it was one of the first post-war Jaguar race cars on the West Coast.
There it is. I mean, you're looking at, these things too have, that particular car there has a top speed of 140 miles an hour and has 290 horsepower. 1949. Something like that going 140 miles an hour would be absolutely quite the ride, I would think.
Yeah, and you know what? Back in the day, obviously, these were road cars, and they would drive these cars to the race, prepare them, which there wasn't a lot to do, and then drive home. And in that tradition, we mentioned James Alder. That's exactly what he still does to this very day. He drove his XK120 from Reno, Nevada, across the mountains and down into California, and he goes to Seattle and many other historic events. But I love the fact that he's kept that tradition going.
He's truly one of the favorites of the paddock for many reasons. He's well liked for his personality and his knowledge, but also because he holds those traditions and he holds those close to his heart. He's a nice, clean driver out there as well, as we see them navigating through turn 12 to complete the first lap of our first morning's race here on Sunday morning here at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca.
Yeah, looking forward to a big day. We've got some big surprises. If you weren't with us yesterday, we've got a lot of the same groups obviously going out again. They all get two races, But it is John Budabaum in that Jaguar Parkinson Special from 1949, leading the way ahead of this man, Bob Manson, in the Curtis 500S Dodge. Look at that, a 77 of Don Pepperdine in the Baldwin Mercury Special from 1949. So, like we said, it's basically 48 to 57. Certainly one of my favorite eras for this kind of racing, because it's a bunch of European cars taking on America.
Shock. That's why it's your favorite, Jonathan. Folks, I do feel ganged up sometimes here in this, but between Kira and
we
Kev
know how competitive you Americans.
Oh, I know, no. So it's me against them all, and I hold strong here. I'm holding strong for my American brothers and sisters here. But yeah, no. This is all joking aside. I'm passionate about all things motorsport, and I love what got pushed. I love how the Americans pushed the Europeans and vice versa, and I love the combination, how it's all grown together and kind of organically come together, and now we share so much of that technology on a global level with global GT3 cars and the global rules package going forward for sports car racing to keep this sports car genre alive that we're enjoying the vintage of this weekend. There's going to be 20, 30 years from now that we're going to enjoy the cars that the rules are being built for right now, the new LMDH. Le Mans Daytona hybrid prototype. So that's going to be another exciting era in sports car racing, but that is again just showing that globally we come together in this sport to just get the best out there for our fans.
Yeah, we said that there's not too many American cars, but there is. Wesley Abendroff in his 1955 Chevrolet Mistral, or Chevrolet Mist. Mistral defined as a strong wind blowing southeast of France towards the Mediterranean. The Mistral, his famous wind. And after 1955, the car designer name was Bob Plass from Surrey in England, who owned Microplass.
And the Baldwin Mercury Special, where were the Don Pepperdine is in the car that we just saw, the number 77. I would wonder, because Mercury, I always automatically would think the United States, is one of the Detroit, and just like the Curtis Dodge of Rob Manson. But yeah, it looks like there's always in this group an eclectic group. You get definitely your mix of Jaguars in there and the SKs, but definitely a lot of variety. As this gap here has opened up a little bit. This is Lars Mapsteed. This was that battle between Lars and look at him work that wheel.
Lovely.
Really great driving by Lars, and James just really hot in tow there. James, again, right down to period in that white XK in tow there, and he's got the open face helmet and all. See, great safety gear, too, from Lars. You can notice in that cockpit, he has actually arm restraints, something that we run a lot in open wheel competition and sprint cars, midgets, Silver Crown cars, because if you do, unfortunately, if the thing were to roll over, your arms tend to want to come out. Well, the arm restraints tie you down into the seatbelts, but don't restrain you from being able to work the wheel, obviously, as Lars is demonstrating. So my hat's off to him for taking those extra measures in there, because they are available. And if they're available, why not? As they make their way through turns 11, down the short chute into turn 12.
You mentioned that Baldwin. It was built. Yeah, it was built here in the States, and it disappeared, or at least it went missing for some 20 years. Appeared back and was restored. It was one of the originals that did the Pebble Beach races. As we look at James Older in his XK, looking very happy and enjoying it.
He's just you can see the smile through the scarf right there. I mean, it just got a huge, huge smile on his face, and
I'm sure he'll be up here to tell us all about it.
Yeah, I think he got a little bit of a wide entry there, dropped a little bit, dropped the right rear. Got it rotated nicely for the exit of the hairpin, getting a good acceleration down into turn 3. As he says, it's towards the end of the races in these cars, braking is more of a suggestion. So I think he's gotten to that point, but he uses up all the road quite nicely. He's from edge to edge there as he navigates through turn 4. Beautifully, beautifully done in that number 33 XK.
And he was telling us yesterday, this has been literally a life of doing this. He saw the Pebble Beach races as a kid and has never looked back and has never changed mark or car. He's literally run Jaguars or a variation of whatever. He says he's had axle problems and diff problems. But, he just absolutely adores it. Mechanics it himself. And puts the luggage in the back. Ooh, that was a bit of a moment. Please don't scare me like that. I don't think he's aware of how close that was.
I think James is just not willing to give it up right there. He was definitely holding strong on the outside. That was a really, really strong pass. I believe that was Wesley, maybe?
Yeah, that's the 63. The Allard K2.
John Mote?
Yeah, John Mote.
Yeah.
From Sun Valley, California.
So well done, John Mote. That was a fancy pass on Mr. Alder.
Yes, 1950 Allard K2. This car actually was in the New York Auto Show back in 1950.
The Chevrolet Mist that you were just speaking of right here.
Yep,
and it's got a Chevrolet look to it, doesn't it? That Corvette look of that era. Somewhat, I would see that now that you pointed that out, but that's a beautiful, beautiful red car, and definitely gets the acceleration off the corner, a nice pop off the corner. Beautiful machine. That looks like a lot of fun to drive. Really low slung. Looks like good weight distribution towards the rear, trying to balance out.
A little different than the Chevrolets we've come to know.
Right. Yes. But it is a V8. It's a 4.9 liter. They're just shy of a 5 liter with 140 mile an hour top speed, but 300 horsepower out of that little machine there. And I mean, that's American muscle again, right there at work.
Well, that was the ethos, wasn't it? The idea was to take the design and the lightweightness of the European style car and then put a bit of muscle in it.
Exactly.
Work out the rest later.
Yeah, right. We give Carroll Shelby, so much of that credit for obviously the AC Cobra and the Shelby Cobras that would later follow. But this right here, I mean, that might have been, for all we know, part of Carroll's inspiration was to see things like this out there. I mean, and we know a lot where his inspiration came from. But yeah, this is again one of those beautiful builds that would have inspired a whole group of people to go out there and try something new.
Yeah, that Jaguar C-Type, that Nick Price was talking about, raced in Ireland and the UK. Bob Baker, Steve Earle, Tom Price all had a lot to do with that. And beautiful car. We saw that just at the pre-grid earlier.
Wesley Abendroth, is really giving it work too. I mean, he's got a really good race going on there, and they're right behind our buddy James, and this is a really good battle here towards as we get towards the latter part of this race.
Yes, getting down. They don't get too long out there, but Rob Manson continues to lead in the Curtis 500S Dodge, and John Guterman still second in that Jaguar Parkinson's Special. And as we look at the 21 of Nick Price, the car I was just mentioning, the 1953 Jaguar C-Type.
Yeah, there's Nick Price. Kerry got to talk to him a little bit right before the grid, and that was really gracious of him to give that time in that C-Type that you mentioned there, Jonathan. What a beautiful car that is. You can tell.
Can't miss that Jaguar grill, can you?
No, you cannot, and he really feels so privileged. You can hear it in his voice to be able to drive that and thanking his crew. That's something close to my heart. Your biggest fans out there are your crew, and they work such feverish hours and work very, very hard and passionately about these machines. If you don't see any more busted knuckles than you will at a vintage weekend, because they work very, very hard and encourage a whole generation, hopefully, to take over here as these mechanics are, starting to want to get to the retirement part of their life. I don't think you ever do retire from racing, though, do you, Jonathan?
But that's who was it that told me that? You never retire. Oh, that was Josh Hayes, because he's retired. He retired ages ago, but he was always coming back to the odd race in either Supersport or the Daytona 200 to see if he could get the all-time Superbike record. He's about 4 away from the all-time number of wins in American racing at Superbike level. And I said, because he said he's doing Daytona next year, and I said, I thought you'd retired. He said, we never retire. We're racing drivers.
No, he's right. He's absolutely right. I mean, I look at my Uncle Mario. He's 81 years of age.
Still doing 200 miles.
He does the two-seater and 200 miles an hour at the Speedway. And like I said, when he goes and does his physical every year, he does the same physical as the IndyCar drivers do to be able to do that, to get licensed to do it. And he's in better shape than some of the active IndyCar drivers, which is just phenomenal to think of that, and the way he takes care of himself. And he really focuses on his nutrition. And my cousin Barbie, his daughter, really helps out and really keeps an eye on him with his nutrition. And he's very active too. You never had to motivate my dad or my Uncle Mario to be active. They were some of the most active individuals you ever care to be around. So that's never a question. He's never wanting to sit for very long. So, but yeah, it's really, really inspiring to see, because you're right. These racers will never retire. You just can't. I've seen people, like I said yesterday, try to walk away from the sport, but they always come back. I mean, we've seen it recently in the MotoGP paddock. It's been so long to see Casey Stoner, and all of a sudden he's back in the paddock, and they're talking about bringing him in as a riding coach for these certain teams and such. So it's quite interesting to see that people just can't leave this sport. We love that part.
There's the Elva Mark 1 Sport Racer from 1955, the 101, Don Badalci at the wheel. Just put his fastest lap in on lap 6. That's a pretty little thing.
It is. It's a funny little. It's a little 4-cylinder there, 90 horsepower. It's a modest, or 90 mile an hour top speed. Excuse me. The horsepower, get this, is 50 horsepower in that little guy. So this is very much. He could do the David versus Goliath race later on. He could qualify for that.
Yeah, and if you're wondering what we're talking about, we've got Minis versus Mustangs later today. And we've already had one race in the dark, or in the evening anyway, with headlights blaring and flashing. And some had them, some didn't. It was quite a sight, but it was fun. It was really good fun, and we're going to do it again this afternoon, so looking forward to that.
I think it's going to be a night race again tonight, because if I look at the schedule, it's on at 4:45.
Yeah, it's pretty close, isn't it?
Yeah, so I believe we're going to be getting that nightfall again. So don't want to miss that, folks.
Well, headed towards our man Stu, up on the ledge there, looking over the Monterey Hills and putting a nice view of Rob Manson in his Curtis 500S Dodge as it goes up the Rahal Straight for the last time and into that famous corkscrew.
Rob's just done a great job handling this race. He's got himself a, just over a 2 1/4 second lead on John Buddenbaum in the 1949 Parkinson Special Jaguar. But a beautiful, beautiful race that Rob has put forth here.
And as he approaches the last corner, he's got a couple of cars just in his way, but there is the white flag, so one more lap to go then. Just passing that number 21 of Nick Price, or will be, as he comes into Andretti. I wish I was out there, could hear them with the marshals, hear the beautiful sounds of them. We get a little reprieve as they come past our commentary position, but we're high above the track. But
I tell you what, there's one class out here that you don't have to be out there to hear, and that's that classic Trans Am.
Yeah.
I swear, I feel it's like it's going to shake our triple tall building down off the ground. It's definitely a seismic effort as they go by. It's really, really fantastic, and I like to think that we bring that to with our modern Trans Am. So this is it gives me a little piece of what gets felt from the outside of the race car when we do what we do. But as they circulate here around the last with this Group 2, the first race of our morning here at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca, for the Velocity Invitational.
yes, and coming up we have McLaren Automotive and the ragtime races. And if you haven't seen the ragtime races, you don't want to miss that. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Got ourselves a good race going on here. Some hand signals going on between a couple of drivers here. You got the number 3 of John Buddenbaum. And I believe there's that Don.
He's taken the spare out just so he got a little less weight. Did you notice that?
Right, exactly. Don Pepperdine behind him. That's a good race going on there, right here at the end.
Very good, yeah. Yeah, they make the corkscrew look so smooth compared to some of the cars that take it on.
This is a great race for second place between John and Don. Joe,
yep,
coming down to turn number 11.
Buddenbaum and
Don
Pepperdine.
Down the inside.
Oh, nicely done. Beautifully done at 10.
Pass down in turn 11 there, coming into turn 12. And it looks like he's going to hold on and come to the line to grab second place right at the end.
Meanwhile, Rob Manson will take victory in the 1953 Curtis 500. Nicely done. And second place then looks as though it is going to go to Don Pepperdine.
Yeah, John Buddenbaum rounds out the podium, and then you got Lars Mapsteed coming around.
James will be pleased with fifth.
Circle around. Yeah, James will be happy with his race, I believe. The car ran beautifully the whole time, and that's James's really his first goal is that thing run pristine the whole time. It looked like it did, at least from our cheap seats. Maybe from James' seat it was a little different, but I'm sure he'll come up here and we'll get a good little glimpse into what he had. Yeah, we'll get a nice little debrief just before lunch.
Well, that concludes our first group action from Group 2 of 1948 to 1957. And thumbs up from the winner, Rob Manson. Now here Dario Capitoni is down in the paddock area, and he is with Kev Harris. Let's head down there.
Lovely, thanks Johnny. I'm catching up indeed with a young man who I first met about 7 years ago, 2015. Dario Capitano was winning at the SCUSA Supernats in Las Vegas, the biggest go-kart race in the world, and he is now racing in a Lamborghini. Dario, great to see you again, my friend. Congratulations once again on that kart racing win. You've come a long way.
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't expecting that, honestly, years ago. I mean, the Supernats was really the first race I did in US in my life, so I wasn't expecting to be racing for Lamborghini then, years after. So.
And going from kart racing now to racing in an absolute hypercar here, it's only suitable for the track. And Dario, you race it. Tell us what we're looking at the moment behind here.
This is one of the 40 pieces of the Lamborghini Essenza SC V12, which of course it's a V12, 830 horsepower, only for track days, of course. A car for collectors, not really a car you can drive to the market.
Yeah, and amazingly, you've just come to the end of your season racing this. 40 of these have been made, so that's it. The run is done. This one is now actually for sale. This won't go again out on the racetrack?
Correct.
Phenomenal. Just give us a heads up of what it's like to drive, because obviously I spoke to you just before. You started in karts at 8, then you've been racing cars, I think since you were, what did you say, about the last 10 years or something, and now here you are. When you get behind the wheel of a hypercar like this and you look through the windshield, what goes through your mind? What are the emotions? What are you feeling?
You can really feel the power, but it's incredibly easy to drive. Much easier than any other supercars I ever drove in my life. Yeah, by far. Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Maybe because it's longer, wider, and more planted with more aerodynamic, so it makes everything easier for a driver.
Yeah, absolutely. And coming around the track here at Laguna Seca, you were out in it yesterday and you're going out here again today. What's it like taking around this iconic race circuit?
Laguna Seca, I love this circuit no matter where I drive, but with the Senza it's even more special, because when you go down to the corkscrew with this long vehicle right here, it's such a, an incredible feeling.
Because it feels quite long going down through that corkscrew.
Oh yeah, you can feel it. You can really feel it down here. But it's stable. I can hit the throttle, full throttle on the exit, even if I'm downhill. It's pretty easy.
The downforce that this must create just must be incredible.
It is indeed. It's this big rear wing does a pretty great job. In fact, if you really push it at the limit, you might feel a little bit more understeer than oversteer, because it's very planted on the back. Yeah,
we're looking at the back now. I'll tell you what, let's just walk this way because we've got the cars out. We'll come around this side to get another view at it, and we'll have a look in. You are properly sat in here looking at a cockpit, but this is the rear wing that you're talking about, and as you can see, very long car from the back to the rear wing, but very planted on the road, and you're just very aware of how much downforce and how much grip the whole aerodynamics creates.
Yeah, it's the main reason why this car is easy to drive, and also if you look at the rear diffuser back there, you can really see the floor. In fact, if you see the car running on track, you'll see a lot of sand coming out from the back, because the floor is working, it's pushing the air to the car to keep the car planted on the back.
Yeah, the back end of this, I hope you got it on our cameraman Matt's shot there, it's just incredible, the rear diffusion, the rear wing working together. It is a thing of beauty. But let's walk ourselves back this way. Huge rear tyres on it as well. And what you were telling me that was interesting, I think you said it's going up to about 8,000 RPM. But just talk to us about the feeling of speed and this feeling of acceleration going through the revs.
Yeah, it's incredible, how much changed the sound from the outside and the inside. And also in the car you have a screen with a map of the RPM. We show you where you're supposed to upshift in order to get the best RPM range for the horsepower to let them work, all of course. And because it's a V12, it's the real power is at the end of the curve. So in between 6,000 and 8,000 RPM, you can really feel push on your back, which is incredible.
And you just plant it back into your seat and you're off and away.
Yeah.
And interesting, just coming back to kart racing, I mean, you're an Italian and here you are now. As a young man when you were racing a kart, did you ever believe you'd be racing one of the most gorgeous Italian hypercars?
No, I wasn't expecting that. That's why, I feel so blessed. You never know what life, can bring to you. It's cool.
Dario, thanks ever so much for talking to us. You have what I think is probably the greatest job in town. Every Italian young man must be jealous of you. Folks, what do you think to that one? It's an absolute cracker. And from one hypercar to some supercars in the pit lane out there, because I understand we're going from Lamborghini to McLaren with Kiri.
Well, you find us in a slightly different location now as the McLaren cars are heading out onto track in a minute. Now they'll be taking guest rides with them. So the car that you're looking at the moment is the 720 Spider. It's a V8 twin turbo. Now I am hoping that we'll be able to grab Ryan Lewis actually to have a chat with us. So I might just walk in. I believe both of these cars are heading out onto track. And Ryan, are you able to stop and talk to us just yet?
Yeah, of course.
Now tell us, who's just got in the car? Because you were going to be driving, so who's just got in?
Yeah, everyone's got lucky. So Patrizio Award is going to be driving the car this morning with some of the McLaren racing guests. Lucky them, or maybe unlucky, I'm not too sure. We'll see how they feel when they get out.
Okay, well, you were going to be driving these cars, so can you tell us a bit like what it's like to take these out on Laguna Seca?
I mean, this is exactly what these cars were built for. Wonderful cars to drive on the road, but, you know, racing is such a huge part of McLaren's heritage and part of the brand's history that, you know, it's great to actually come to a historic circuit like this and drive the cars. Not as fast as they can go, of course, but pretty quick and offer people the experience of actually riding in the cars on a circuit.
Now, you know this circuit well. How difficult is it for these historic cars to be out on the track as well? Because they're a lot less technical than, say, the McLarens that have just headed out.
Well, I mean, the historic cars have been racing here forever. I think a lot of them are probably faster now than they ever were in period. And I think this is probably the fourth large historic race that's been here this year. Most of these guys have done thousands of laps around here, so it's always great. This is one of the best events that I've seen for seeing a lot of these cars out and having seen these guys having some fun.
All right, well, a racer in your own right. What are you doing here with McLaren this weekend?
So I work for McLaren as a professional driver and instructor. I've worked for McLaren for a few years now, so most of my time I spend sitting with customers on the McLaren Pure events and marketing activations, looking after customers and making sure they get the best out of their cars in a safe way. So most of my time I'm spent in the other seat and not in the driver's seat. So quite a nice one this week. I'm doing a lot of driving. Quite
nerve-wracking. How nervous are your customers when they get in the car with you?
They're usually pretty relaxed until we leave pit lane, and then you can see the grip starts to tighten on the bar and the door, and they tend to go a bit quiet. You tend to gauge by how quiet someone goes if they're that scared. I mean, it's pretty hard to beat for a level of performance. Something like we're driving this weekend, a McLaren 720S Spider. It's not really much out there that's much faster.
Okay, fantastic. Now, I know Ryan's going to join the boys in commentary a little later on. We'll find a time for him to head up there. But it's about that time that I hand back up to Johnny and Adam.
Thank you, Kiri. Yeah, beautiful car. And I was just looking through the offerings that McLaren Automotive make, and I hadn't realised just how many variations, not on a theme, but on different cars, from supercars to the Ultimate to the legacy cars, and of course the GT, as well as that Spider we were just looking at.
Looking forward to having Ryan up here as well. I've known Ryan for quite a few years. He's a great guy, phenomenal driver, and really, there's a lot of fast drivers out there that, just can't translate into instructing all that well, and I'd say Ryan is one of the best at doing so. He's a very, very fast driver, but he translates it into very good layman's terms, and he's very good at keeping people comfortable and calm, because as you can see, he doesn't get too excitable himself. He stays pretty level-headed and calm himself, but he resides, I believe, in Indianapolis still. It's one of those things where I don't believe we live far from each other, but I don't think we see each other but when we're 3,000 miles away from home.
Well, I'll tell you what, this is a thrill for the passenger for sure, because one of the most talented drivers in America at the wheel, Patricio Award from Mexico, currently living in San Antonio, a current IndyCar winner, and for winning this year in Texas, he won a chance to test an actual 2021 Formula One McLaren at Abu Dhabi in a few weeks' time.
That was a smart bet on his part.
Yes, it
was.
was
A smart bet on his part, and good for him for being able to make it true and happen. It was kind of funny that I think as he was heading between turns 5 and 6, he kind of pulled over, was waiting to play around a little bit. I don't know who's driving the other 720S Spider out there, but I think Pato wants to play.
Oh, of course. Yeah, and Pato, interesting career. He's still very young, still in his early 20s, but he was on the road to Formula One. He'd done the natural ladder and had actually gone to Japan before he got the call to come back to Indy. And so he was, he then did a sort of part season in Indy, and then this year, 2021, he had a phenomenal season and was vying for the championship all the way to Mongo. So there's a lot of people think that this man is the real deal, and he could go and stay in Indy, or he could possibly end up in Formula One.
He's a very talented young man. I think the sky's the limit for him. It's wherever he wants to go, he stays level-headed. He keeps his head focused, like he seems doesn't have a problem doing, because he's already ridden some real high peaks and some deep valleys, and then back up to a peak again, as you said, with his 2021 season. But it is pretty well documented on the struggles. He had things working out really well for him, and it looked like he was going to be full-time IndyCar, and then things fell through, and he lost his opportunity. And then Zach Brown obviously was bringing the talent of Patricio Award, and was bringing McLaren back to IndyCar racing as we get the devil horns from the passenger in the 69 driving up the hill. But yeah, it was one of those deals where he's taken each opportunity and he's grabbed it with both hands. And I think that's why we're all looking forward to seeing his test in Abu Dhabi coming up, because he is the future. He is one of the favorites in the IndyCar paddock, because not only his performances in the car, but as we saw yesterday, his personality and his approachability outside the car is what really can make you a superstar in the sport.
And if you're interested in buying a McLaren, I think the starting price for that Spider you saw is about just over $300,000. But you've got your 765 SLT Spider, your 765 LT, the 720S Spider, which we saw, and the 720S, as well as the Altura. And then you've got, and that's just the supercars. There's obviously the GT. And then you get into what we saw earlier this morning, which is the McLaren Senna, there it is, and the McLaren Senna GTR. And then they've also got an exhibition, not on track today, but the Speedtails, several Speedtails here. And I found that really interesting to see the design of those. Haven't really decided which one I like, but I like the idea. I like the Speedtail effect.
I thought you ordered it already.
I've ordered it, yes.
Yeah,
I hope you don't mind. I used your car.
Yeah. So you won't get far. I know that much.
So I think I got a bit of carbon fiber out of it.
I don't even think they'll give you that. I think they may let you sit in it.
Yeah, that's about
it's
it.
like Jimmy John's. It smells free. But it's a beautiful cars over there. The Speedtail is a work of art. I mean, I first got to see one here for the Trans Am weekend in May, and Bruce Canepa actually brought his out, and it was a beautiful car, and that's when I first actually got to meet Bruce and develop a little bit of a rapport there. But he brought that out, was displaying that for us to see, and it was really, really neat of him to do so. And then now we get to see a display of, I think there's 4 or 5 of them down there. So if you're in the area, come on out. If not, looks like we're going to have, like Jonathan said, possible see him on the track later on today. But that's a car that is really, really special in design, and kind of pays homage to the original McLaren F1 that came out in the mid-90s. It's a 3-seater, that Speedtail is, where the driver sits centrally, and flanked on each side a little bit back would be their passengers. It's a fascinating car. It's really, really a work of art.
I also think for a company like McLaren, who are basically focused on racing, it gives their engineers, their designers, something to be a little bit more creative with, take some time with, use what they've learnt in Formula One, which is very much the Ferrari way, and put those better bits into the cars that they put on the road.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. They've got phenomenal road cars. The behavior of the car is, you see them actively on the track here, and each one of these, like those, I can tell you, the 720S Spider is getting around the racetrack with phenomenal ease and care and a lot of fun and adrenaline. However, if you needed to take that out to the store, or if you wanted to just go out for a Sunday drive, it's a very capable car for that as well. One of the best road manners that you'll find in a supercar out there offered from any manufacturer.
So a wonderful display by McLaren, and of course we are heavily swayed towards McLaren with the might of their Formula One cars here, including Zach Brown, who, by the way, has not just driven McLaren, he's also driving his own Alan Jones Williams Formula One car in the historic. He's also driving a sports car Lancia in our IMSA group. So he's had a busy weekend, Zach. I don't think he's thought about what's happening over in Brazil.
No, I don't know if he's had time to. You know, he's like you said, he's in his overalls, jumping from car to car, strapping a helmet on at every turn, and you know, getting to really enjoy, you know, spending time, I think, with Patricio Award through here, away from the pressures of an IndyCar weekend. Also being able to spend some time with the legend Mika Hakkinen, which I know that they've grown a close friendship between the two of them. And whoever's driving this white 720S Spider's having a ball out there, sliding around, doing things the way I would do. You know, it's a hot lap like you robbed a bank. You know, let's do this right. But I love the active rear wing too. When you see him get on the brakes, you know the second they go for the brake pedal, you can tell that it's the second of their brake point because you got the rear wing that pops up.
Yeah, and as I said yesterday, I always think it's a real show of both strength and confidence when you come into a market that is already 40 years plus old, and I'm talking Lamborghini, Ferrari. You know, these guys have been making supercars and very, very bespoke, customized cars for a long time. And for McLaren to come in, there's not too many companies, Aston Martin maybe another, and look at that for a sight. How much we got there? A few million for sure.
More than my rent, I can tell you that. But no, I think they're a couple $1 million a piece, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe when we get Ryan up here a little bit later, Ryan will be able to tell us all the details. He knows this McLaren product inside and out. He's very well versed in it. I mean, that's how I know. A lot of how I know Ryan is some of the McLaren projects that we've been able to do together, and so he knows this product very, very well, and so yeah, it'll be great to see him for numerous reasons, but he could definitely fill us in on exactly what's going on out here and some price points, as you know, that you can find in there, as Jonathan's been building his McLaren ever since we started this session. What color did you go with?
I've gone with a sort of royal blue.
Yeah, I kind of saw that with you.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's my Ipswich Town. That's my colours, you see.
Brings out that haze in your eyes.
Thank you.
There it is.
I didn't think you noticed.
Well, yeah, these Sennas, what a work of art that is, too. You see the wing will tilt back, you know, to lower the drag, like a, if you will, a DRS system, like you see in Formula One, which Mercedes seemed to have gotten ads for down at Interlagos, but
how apropos.
But you know, you don't have rules when you build your road car,
exactly.
So you can tilt that thing back as much. And what it looks like to me is like the DRS system in DTM cars.
Yeah.
The Deutsch Touring Masters, which is German cars, so they have a DRS system which lays the rear wing back, which I think is pretty special looking, and I believe that's what they've got going on here.
By the way, I just want to give a shout out. We were down as we did our opening link. We were right by the merchandise store, and I want to, if you're going to the Sip and Saver, save some time to get your coffee at Good Boy Bob's and have a wander, or get a glass of wine, have a look at the Zinger, but then head over to the merchandise store. Fantastic array there of hats, sweatshirts, Ralph Lauren, and it's beautiful stuff, all with the Velocity Invitational logo, and certainly worth, given that it's such a special year, 2 years after the first event, a little bit of history, take home a hat or take home a jacket, and definitely get down to the merchandise.
It's such a great area over there that they have set up, you know. You can, maybe if you say the right things, you can get them to go ahead and wrap the throttle a couple times on the Zinger over there.
So we've got a fantastic exhibition on track at the moment of McLaren Automotive coming up in a while. We'll have the ragtime races. We'll explain what that is, but you won't want to miss that. It's a lot of fun. And then we'll get back into our group races, and it's good because we've put the ragtime races, which are early pre-war cars, and then likewise we'll go into our group one, which is also pre-war sports race cars, but the real deal from 1924 to 1939. We'll be racing in our group one. So we met one of the drivers this morning and gave us a good idea on him. We'll tell you about that a little later as we watch the two Sennas go about their business on track.
Yeah, that's not a bad little sight to see here. We've been spoiled with it a few times out here, and they've put on a great exhibitions every time they go out. I know the customers that are here enjoying this portion of their day is a special time too, and I think some of these customers are even doing some of the vintage racing, if I understood Ryan correctly. And so there's people out there that are actually getting a lot of laps that have already a lot of laps here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca.
Well, it's heating up to be a beautiful day here. No mist or fog this morning here in the Bay, but the sun came out early, and I think it's going to be a hot one.
Yeah, absolutely. And back to the paddock area that you were talking about, the merch area is just, like I said, our good friends, Eric Joyner's got his Good Boy Bob coffee, which is pretty special brew down there. I believe you could buy bags of coffee down there from them, and then they also have some delicious macaroni and cheese.
I was about to say, it's a bit tempting. You get your coffee and your mac and cheese, and if that's not for you, there's a pizza.
There's pizza right next door. There's some vino over there. So yeah, there's definitely, and then like you said, the merchandise, second to none. It's quality merchandise. Name brand Ralph Lauren, Polo. It's really nice stuff. New Era. So it's premium gear, and I know that we've scored some ourselves while we've been here, and we encourage you all to go do the same. You want to commemorate something, as what we've had this weekend.
You know what I like about that gray and orange is that at first, from this distance, you're not quite sure what it is. It's a supercar. Then you get close, and then you look at the grey, and you think, oh, what's that? And then you see the orange. And if you know you're McLaren, you'll say, it's a McLaren.
And that's a hypercar.
Yeah,
that's a hypercar. That's the same thing as we have with the Zinger that's down there in that same area we just talked about, the merch area. The Zinger is also in the hypercar classification. You're over 1,000 horsepower. You're in that classification. So as we see one of those Sennas pulling off right there into the back area of the paddock. I believe we're starting to draw closer to an end of this session.
Well, I would have thought that would be a great thrill for any of the passengers that were. I don't know who gets to do that, but I'm guessing it would either be potential buyers or perhaps even guys that have worked for
I believe we got Pato right here going through the paces,
and
giving
pushing
hot
it. You can hear the tires crying.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that is Pato. That was very, very clean driving. No matter what, that is a pro behind the wheel there because you're seeing it happen. And these guys, they won't do, so it's a pro when they go out and in. They won't, for a hot lap, they won't keep going. Because
the brakes get too hot, right?
Well, it's not that. No, these cars can handle it. It is the fact that they need to get as many people in a passenger seat.
I see, yeah. I'll bet.
Award.
Yeah.
And so this is usually out and in laps, although it looks like he's going to actually complete a lap. We're going to get a full flyer here. Special VIP treatment. Beautiful drive. Beautiful four-wheel drift as it comes. It gets the checkered flag for the session.
Give it some beans. It's still chatting along the way.
Oh, I guarantee you chatted the whole way around. Yeah, I mean, that's what's so special about a hot lap with a true professional like Patricio Award or a Ryan Lewis down there, who we also know.
Oh, yes.
It's always going to be a chatterbox moment. They want to talk about what they're experiencing because that's a teaching moment as well. You're able when you're able to feel what those drivers' inputs are and they're telling you what those inputs are doing. It only builds your confidence to not necessarily try what they're doing because it takes a skill level to get there, but it certainly gives you the confidence that the car can handle more than what you've been giving it usually at the student level.
So wherever you're tuning in around the world, and we are live on YouTube for the Goodwood YouTube channel, Goodwood Facebook, and Motor Trend, motorvision.com, racer.com here in the USA, and Paul Fanner here. I'm hoping to get him up in the booth at some point, and Velocity Invitational's Facebook, as well as the Velocity Invitational YouTube.com site, so go wherever you want. There's also the Eurosport player. Go to www.eurosport.com.
On the cool down lap, going up the hill there to the corkscrew they are, and that beautiful 720S Spider.
Well, let's head down to the paddock. And Kev, what are you up to, Kev? What have you found?
Well, thanks, Johnny. I am down here with the products of the future. We're surrounded by historic sports racing cars, but Jake Hawksworth and John Miller of Hypercraft Racing have just been filling me in on what the future is all about. Standing in front of a huge trophy truck here, Jake, but it's what's going on, or what could be going on inside this truck, that you guys at Hypercraft Racing are all about.
Yeah, that's correct. It's a very advanced electric propulsion system that we're developing, and we're working with Geyser Brothers, who's kind of the #1 name in trophy truck building, to bring a brand new all-electric trophy truck to off-road racing.
It's incredible, and what we're talking about here then is bringing, electrification and accessibility to this kind of technology to lower-end teams and motorsport teams right across the board.
Yeah, that's right. The development of electric vehicle drive systems is incredibly expensive, but it has to be done in a very safe way, fully engineered way. So that's what Hypercraft does, and then we give access to, builders, motorsport, creatives, innovators that want access to build electric vehicles.
I'll come back to you, Jake, because I've got a question for you now, John, and I'm very interested in this because of my kind of connections in the UK with the car industry. When it comes to electrification of vehicles, which is what you're all about, people are still concerned about range anxiety, charging options being plentiful, and is perhaps going to an electric vehicle the way that they want to go. It seems to be where we're headed, but how are we overcoming these kind of thoughts from your average consumer?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of development that's happening in infrastructure across the board, and companies like Tesla are really, breaking the seal on perception of what kind of performance you can get out of an electric vehicle. What we're doing is putting it in the hands of the grassroots culture, so that they can tinker with it and build on their existing chassis and stuff like that. So we're essentially providing it to the one-offs who are really innovators in the sport.
It's really interesting, and obviously Friday night kicked off down here, Jake, with a panel discussion with yourself and Zach Brown and others, all about the future of motorsport, and we've probably just got about 30 seconds to wrap it up, but what were some of the takeaways of that kind of panel discussion about the future of motorsport?
I think the future of motorsport is a balanced future where we preserve the history of the past. We're not here to replace internal combustion. We're introducing a new technology. We want to gain access not only to the fans of motorsport, but also to the people that participate, access to the electric propulsion, and it's I think one of the most exciting times for the future of motorsport.
It really is, guys. Thanks ever so much for talking to us. From the cars and the technology of the future to the cars and the technology of pre-war, post-war, the 1900s, it's the Ragtime Racers with Kerry.
Yeah, well, we have stepped back a bit into time here with the Ragtime Racers. Now I'm joined with Brian. We haven't got long because they're heading out onto the track here at Laguna Seca. But Brian, tell me about this fabulous machine.
This is a Romano Sternavant. It was built 100 years ago from surplus World War I airplane engines and a 1916 Auburn chassis that had been wrecked.
Well, it's absolutely fantastic down here. You really have recreated a bit of history and so many magnificent machines. How did yourself become involved in this?
I had an old family friend that raced a national in 1912, and he was a chauffeur and won the race, and that got me started when I found an old trunk of his full of his racing memorabilia. And from that day on, I've been hooked.
Yeah, I bet you have. They are so fantastic. What other cars can we see here amongst yours? What else is here?
We've got some really exciting cars. We've got the oldest Packard race car in the world. number 16. We have a locomobile that is one of two that raced back in 1909. We've got 2 or 3 nationals, including the one that ran in the very first Indy 500 in 1911.
That's very cool. Now the engines are roaring. It's time for you to get out there and enjoy it.
Thank you. It's a lot of fun.
I bet it is. Thank you so much, Brian. All right, I'm going to hand back down to you, Kev, now.
Ragtime races. One of my favorite parts is to see these guys, and they travel around America. I've seen them in Indianapolis, I've seen them at Coda, I've seen them all around America, but to see them here in where they should be, which is at a vintage race and basically representing as a precursor to our Group 1, which is coming up straight after, which is pre-war 24 to 39 pre-war sports racing cars, is the perfect setup because these guys basically put on a show, and their whole essence is to educate people about these pre-war engines, cars, and really the beginnings of racing in America, and they do it well. You can see the setup here. But the cars are so well prepared. I've been a passenger in one of them at Sonoma at the first event, and absolutely enjoyed every moment of it. It's rather scary as a passenger because of course you can see for yourself there's not a lot of places. But that was the sort of thinking back then, was that you didn't want to be strapped in, because if you had a problem, you wanted to be as far away from this large aeroplane engine and racing car as possible. So they would have their spotter, as they were. There wasn't just a passenger, it was an actual spotter. And it wasn't until Ray Haroon invented the mirror in the Indy 500 and didn't have a passenger that effectively racing changed. But back then, no mirrors, you had your own spotter. He could look over his shoulder and also start the car for you and sort out any problems. I'm delighted to also welcome into the booth the man who's put this all together for us. And we're delighted to have Jeffrey O'Neill, who is a busy boy. So we've got him for about 5 minutes, but I just wanted to get your feedback mid-weekend, as it were. I'm sure you've got probably 3 or 4 rides. How's it going? We don't get out there in the paddock, but we will later in the day. But what's the feedback you're getting from the fans?
Jonathan, good morning.
Good morning.
So far, it's been fantastic. I mean, the drivers, the cars, the guests, you name it. Everybody that's been in the paddock has had a really, really great time. Now you have going out the ragtime racers. These guys are awesome. They started these, years ago, and to have these early cars out, and I love the quote of Henry Ford. When did racing start? He said when the second car got built.
Yep.
And these cars are kind of back in that period. I mean, the early 1900s. It's extraordinary, and they come as a team and they run as a team, and they're just fantastic.
As an organizer, I would have thought the hardest part of this is trying to create a vision of equity. And what I mean by that is who's in each group, who races. There's a lot of vintage racers out there. Obviously, the majority are from the West Coast in this particular instance, and that is apropos. But how do you go about deciding how many in each group and what cars, or I've got to have one of those, I've got to have one of, I've got to represent this, and is that probably along of the organising is a long time ago before the event even starts. You're thinking, what groups are right?
We are planning that over a year in advance. We've got a team of 3 always working on cars, working on grids. We want them to be period correct. All the cars now, we are the only vintage racer in North America that insists on original racing history on every car. Authenticity, the right tires. So what that has done is it's brought out some amazing cars that ordinarily don't want to come out of these secret garages. But we're trying to create a forum where people can come and safely race their extraordinary and historic race cars. And, the more originality, the better.
Well, I know that Adam's enjoying every minute of it. You weren't at Sonoma with us, but your eyes popped out when you saw the groups and what was available. And to be here at Laguna as well.
Yeah, it's special. I mean, you could tell that you were obviously inspired to do something different than what had been done in the vintage world before, and you just said it right there. You're the only ones, and you found a niche in there, and that niche brought, like you said, some fantastic vehicles out of the woodwork, and we've been so privileged to sit here in this commentary booth. I know you've got to get running, and you're anxious to get out there with your own session coming up here soon, and we appreciate every second that you give us here. But yeah, it's been a true pleasure to see not only what you've organized here, and you've been so gracious too. All credit you've given to your entire team. You felt like you had this vision, and you've had these people in place, and you've given such good credit to those people that have executed this, because it is far and away the best event I've attended aesthetically too. On top of all the things we get to see entry wise, but the aesthetics of this paddock, and as we get an overview of it right there, is just one of the most pleasing things I've seen. So congratulations.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for coming and helping make this a great event.
I've got two more things. I know you want to give a shout out, or I do, to Steve Earle, Tom Price, Mark Osborne, the likes of Zach Brown, obviously your team, Ryan Turi out there as well, and Brittany Kinch doing a fantastic job. Who else would you like to kind of give a shout out to, and what else would you like to see next year?
Well, I guess two things. The shout out is going to be to the wives or spouses of the teams that came and worked here, because we stole them about 6 months ago, and they haven't seen them in the last 2 weeks. So that's where the real shout out goes. Next year, we're scheduled for October 14th. We are hoping to just continually bring cars out of garages that people haven't seen, get them on the track. I mean, having the 300 SLR was terrific. Having 3 GTOs here, we wanted 2 short wheelbases. I mean, Jags, you name it, everything we've got. Porsches, 356s. We want to just keep bringing great people and better cars, and we will keep curating these grids so they look authentic and in period.
Good for you. And what will you be racing today?
I will be racing Tom Price's GTO in about at 12:20 and 9:45 a Maserati Birdcage.
Nice.
And then the Ford GT Le Mans car 2016. I think that goes out at 11:05.
Why do you like? I know you do that in the Birdcage a lot. I've seen you on many occasions on that car. What do you like about it so much?
Oh my God, the car is fabulous. It's light, it's fast, it handles well. It's like a full-size go-kart. It's the drive, totally balanced, just a blast.
Well, listen, we know you're a busy man. My thanks to you and Ryan putting it all on. We will carry on as we are. Feel free to send anybody up here that you feel needs to come and talk to us.
We will. We will. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you very much. Jeffrey O'Neill, who is the organizer of the event and has been running this event now for 2 years. We had a year off during the COVID break, but we're here and running at Laguna Seca. Delighted he'll be in action later today. And you know what? It made me think while listening to Jeff there, there's an importance to this too. I mean, history is history. It doesn't matter whether you make sewing machines or you're talking about horse racing or you're talking about the court system. It doesn't matter. History is history. And how you preserve it and how you go about it is very interesting. Motorsport has chosen to show it and show what it does as we get ready for our ragtime races. But that, I think, is really important, is that the history is preserved. Yes, we're flying into the future with Elon Musk and electric cars, but these cars have a place, and people still want to learn about how the motor car came to be. It's the most important thing in our lives, and I think it will remain so for the next many, many years to come.
I've been saying it all along with the electric car, is that you want to get a whole generation super excited about internal combustion engines. Tell them they can't have one. and that's kind of where we're at, because you're seeing this whole generation that's being threatened to not have this thunder, to not have what we've known for 100 years, to be changed that dramatically. Yeah, I agree. It's never going to go away. And this history, as we see it in motion right here, this is what I love about it. This is history in motion. We're seeing these ragtime racers. These are all, turn-of-the-century vehicles. These are horse carriage, basically with an engine. And it's amazing to watch them out there. And this is passion. This is true passion. You know, their suits are flapping in the wind. This is exciting stuff to see.
Well, you'll be pleased to know the car that you just saw, the number 20, was built in your backyard, and I say that. It was built in Indianapolis. It's a 1911 National Racer, 450 cubic inches, 4-cylinder, T-head with 100 horsepower and a 3-speed transition, non-synchro.
Nice, absolutely. No, I love to see
wooden wheels and mechanical brakes. Rear owner. How could you handle that?
Very carefully. Around the yard of bricks in Indianapolis, it would have been very carefully.
Well, in fact, that car that you're looking at, that not this one, but the number 20 I mentioned, that actually raced at the first Indy 500. As we look at car number 5. Oh, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, these machines are just something else. I love the display. This is a full exhibition. This is the only time that we do not see any lap times up on timing and scoring. Nobody here. It's just all about getting these cars out on track and
enjoy it. Yeah.
And showing, look at hanging on from the outside there. No such thing as keeping your arms and legs inside at all times.
No.
This is, you got to hang on to whatever you can out there. It's basically a motorcycle with 4 wheels back then.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, as we looked at the number 4, that's the 1915 Ford Racer. But as we mentioned, the job of the spotter and mainly was the job. But look how the lean at the corkscrew. That was another important thing, was to actually balance the car through the corners. And so they would get the passenger to lean. And sometimes both of them would lean. And it's all part of being in unison. But you can imagine when you were really in the pursuit of a proper race that you guys would be, working in unison to lean and keep the weight of the car and all feel 4 wheels, on the ground, so to speak. But that number 4 Ford T Racer, a 4-cylinder, 177 cubic inches, Raho, overhead valve cylinder head, and Hartford shocks as well.
You're surprised to see that these things have shocks on them at all. I just saw leaf springs out there, but this is it takes you back in a time. I've only seen before I was first introduced to ragtime racers, which was earlier this year, to be honest. I have only seen these kind of cars represented in the museum. The great Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum, for example. Mm-hmm. That's the only time I've ever seen these aesthetically. Other than that, you kind of close your eyes and imagine. And, the little video clips that you'll find of those early Indy 500s that are in their archives. But to see it come alive here and the way they put on this exhibition, the Ragtime Racers, is quite special, because it's not just what they do here on track, it's also what they do in the paddock. Their paddock presentation is second to none. They have a beautiful trailer set up with the beautiful time period pictures of racing in those eras and in that era, in that time period. Also have people in their time period clothing around that area, so they really buy into the whole aspect. Just like we saw up there with up here with the cycle carts yesterday, with our guests that we had in the tower yesterday from the cycle carts. In period dress, and it's just, you love to see them all get in of what's going on here. And I think one of the things we haven't pointed out either is for the team here, Velocity Invitational, it's been a great mix of not only this but the modern technology of having McLaren Automotive Group here and having the Ford GTLMs here, also having the motorcycles here and the superbikes, Moto America. This is, I gotta say, very eclectic and very, very forward-thinking, and on them wanting to go ahead and do the mixture like they've done.
Yeah, and also what's important about this type of car and this type of period is that, I mentioned that Ford race, and obviously Ford is still going strong, and you can see the latest 2022 Ford GT down in the paddock, as well as the 1915 Ford racer that's out there. But names like the National or Franklin Special, Hudson Super 6 racers, they're no more. So to see them actually in motion and still working 100 years on, it's fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
Oh, it is, without question. Without question, it is. It is definitely a special sight. It's one of our true treats that we get here this weekend, and I think that might be. I mean, I think Jeff kind of answered our question on why we didn't see the Mormon Wasp, but it needed to have that history.
Yeah,
and that's a replica. That was a replica. So I got a great appreciation for what Jeff's vision is here and how they're following through with it. And, it's really, even these ragtime racers have got to show that history.
Yeah, and even the Formula One McLaren that you'll see out, the modern, the 98s and the 2011 cars, they are period to the point of computers too. So if it took a basic laptop from the 80s or 90s to run it, that's what's running it now. And that again is Jeff's. It has to be right.
Yeah, I mean,
and Zach Brown believes that too.
You could hear the blown diffuser on the two. So that was the era of the blown diffusers, and you could hear them off throttle, and the blown it's still blowing exhaust gas over the diffuser. And actually, that car, it didn't have a blown diffuser because the rules had changed, so they were taking advantage of where the exhaust exits had to be. So they were taking advantage of what was called the Coandra effect, where they were drawing the energy off of blowing the exhaust gas, drawing the energy along the body lines, and that would pull that exhaust gas down onto the tray, and that would create that extra downforce. But that was a really special era, and I think it was, that car was a great version, and I think it was, without some reliability issues maybe early on in the season, that would have been a serious contender to Sebastian Vettel in that Red Bull for the World Championship that year.
Just saw a nice Hudson there, Hudson Motor Company from Detroit, Michigan.
Listen, a lot of American muscle here.
Yeah, exactly. Original American muscle.
Yes, sir.
Well, as you heard from the interview with Kiri, the crossover between the development of the motor car in the 1900s and the 1920s was basically cars and aeroplanes, because when the Wright brothers finally got it right, and we went flying, and then we went to war, and we flew in both World War I and World War II, the engines that were being developed in the day became used for airplanes as well. So then they took those airplane engines, because that was the power, and put them in cars like these. So it all was kind of a coming together of technology. And at the time, it was an amazing technology. Imagine if you were in a horse and car in your 20s, and then in your 40s, you're looking at these and going, oh, I can go 65 miles in a day?
I spoke of that yesterday, right? My grandmother, she spoke of horse and buggy, and then, by the time she had passed on, the internet had been created. So, to think about all those things that happened in between, like you said, the evolution, the car, the invention of the car, the evolution of the car, being in the airplane, airplanes, commercial air flight, air travel, and man on the moon. I mean, all these things that she got to experience in a lifetime. But the car, the automobile, the checkered flag falls on the ragtime racers, but the automobile just continues this incredible evolution, as we see with the McLaren Automotive Group here, the active aerodynamics that they have. And when you see just where we've come 100 years in the car, from the ragtime racers to the modern cars of today, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I think if I had a son or a daughter who knew my passion for racing, and then was able to come to a day like this and explain how the development came, I mean, no kid likes sitting in a classroom, but every kid is fascinated by something they can see, smell, breathe, get about it, get amongst it, maybe riding one or sitting one. Then suddenly the interest is piqued. Then suddenly any kid, a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, will learn something of a day from this, and also explaining how these were the forerunners to what Mum and Dad take them to the cinema with, or to the movies with, or to school with. This was the starting off. And I don't think any kid could not be amazed at what they're looking at here.
I mean, that's honestly, if you want to know the truth, that's how I learned numbers and stuff growing up, was with racing. I mean, if I wanted to learn fractions, I turned lap times into fractions. Learned a lot of fractions off of just wrenches, and things of that sort. So it was, one of those things where, racing, certainly the visceral part of it is what definitely, teaches you. And I couldn't agree more. We got a group of safety trucks at the top of the hill. Might have had a ragtime racer at a stall up at the top of the hill here.
Yeah, what's going on there. I didn't see a car parked up. Here comes the 4. And those tiny little wooden wheels coming down the Laguna.
Making it happen.
Corkscrew. I tell you what, I would be very, very nervous in one of those cars trying to drive it around here. That's no mean feat.
No, I mean, I think, as brave as the men and women were of the day that yielded these vehicles, they're just equally as brave as, today as they peel off the track there between turns number 10 and 11.
Yes, a nice display of ragtime races, which sets us up nicely for our Group 1 coming up. And that will be 1924 to 1939 pre-war sports racing cars. And that will be a race. And if we got yesterday to go on, it should be a very good one too. And as we look high above the Laguna Seca circuit, the sun is brightly shining here in November. And as you can see right in the front of your picture there, we've got a fantastic pre-grid, as we're calling it, or velocity lane. And that's where Kiri has perched herself and is in and amongst it. Let's go down to Kiri.
Yeah, it is. So much, Johnny. Okay, well, I'm standing by the 99 car, which is the Lotus that you can see just there. Now, that Lotus, it wasn't that successful in terms of racing, and it's actually a smaller engine than some of the other cars here. But a gorgeous car in that fabulous racing green. So the 99 car is driven by, I'm just having a look down my list there, Steve McCartney. So we can just see eyes on that car there. Actually, we may as well just stick the mic in, actually, because they've got a lovely brolly here. So I'll just stick the mic in. Steve, you're looking forward to heading out onto the track? I didn't think Steve would be able to hear. Once you've got the helmet on, they can't hear much down here because it is so noisy, but we'll give a wave to Steve anyway. And that is Steve McCarthy that's driving there. All right, well, we did actually want to move down the grid here to car number 7. Well, this is the car that's just pulling in here. Now, this is a Maserati T61 birdcage. Now, actually, the birdcage was made out of all sort of different tubes, and it was one of the very few cars that were designed in that way. In fact, probably was one of the only cars designed in that way. So a fascinating history behind this Maserati. This one, a 1960 Maserati, driven by Jonathan Faber. We'll just have a look. Let you hear the roar of the engine, and then hopefully we might be able to get a word with him. Now, there is another Maserati in this category as well, so keep your eyes out for car 24 as well. I don't think with car number 57 revving in the background you'll be able to hear much. Now, that's William Taylor in a Cooper Monaco in the car 57. Let's just take you down the line so you can just have a look at these glorious cars, and maybe we might be able to get down, because we are hoping to be able to grab a word with Mark Osborne. So we'll walk down here and see if we can catch up with him. But the noise down here, as always, is just absolutely spectacular. All right, well, we are having a look at car number 5 at the moment, and he's not actually on our list, so he's a sneaky entry. So we'll find out more. I think the boys in the commentary booth will probably be able to give you a little bit more of an insight into that fantastic car. Now, 164 is Mark Sang. He's driving the Lotus 11 Le Mans car, and you can just see some of the names on the car of people, including Graham Hill, who have driven this car. All right, now eyes on car number 64, Bob Harrison. And yeah, a big thumbs up from Bob, definitely looking to head out and enjoy his time out there. Now, Now, Charles McCabe, I believe we spoke to Charles yesterday. Charles looking raring to go. I wonder if Charles will be able to hear me. Charles, looking forward to getting out there?
Yeah, it's going to be good fun.
Can you tell us a little bit about the car?
Another beautiful day for it, huh?
It is a beautiful day. Now, if you wonder why Charles answered slightly different to what I asked him, the reason is because the engines down here are so very, very loud, and it is almost impossible to hear anything I am saying. Now, next along the list is Greg Mayer. This is a Sadler MK4. This is from 1959. Greg looking very cool there in his sunglasses there, ready to go out. All right, well, we are working our way down the line. We did want to get to Mark Osborne, but we haven't managed to catch our eyes on that. Okay, now eyes on car number 65. This is Michael Silverman. Michael, I don't know whether you can hear me, but are you looking forward to getting out there?
Oh, yes, because it's kind of hot sitting here.
It is kind of
air conditioning going.
Now, can you tell me a little bit about this car?
It's one of 3 built in 1958 and 59. It's a home-built special on a 56 Chevy sedan chassis with a small block injected Corvette engine and drum brakes, which makes it terrifying.
I was just going to add that. Now, how did this car get into your hands?
It was up for sale, and I used to run with this group in my dad's Lister, and it was basically, it was a way to have the cheapest house in the most expensive zip code at Monterey.
Fantastic.
Now I'm back racing with all my old buddies.
Fantastic. Well, you enjoyed it.
On a budget.
Well, it's all on a rather fabulous budget. Now, I think we might head back up here, because once these engines roar, I'm not even sure you can hear my microphone too much, so it's probably about time that Johnny and Adam, you take over.
Great job, Kerry. Yeah, and wonderful shots from our cameraman Tony Garcia there. And they'll be up and down that velocity lane throughout the day. And it's a great concept that to create your own pit lane, because obviously you can't have everybody that close to a live pit lane and racetrack, which is obviously how it normally is here. So they created their own pre-grid, effectively. Very similar to Trans Am in that respect, but a great way for the fans and guests here to really enjoy and get up close, and us as TV to get up close, because we too want to see these cars up close and personal.
For sure, I agree. I think that's been one of the highlights for me to see here. I think this is something that you're going to see possibly mimicked at events moving forward, because it's really smart and kind of really sharply done. It's safe too. It gives you, as I said earlier, I bet Haggerty loves it, because it's got it's got that area where the fans, are separated, from the cars, but they're right on top of them. They still are up close and personal, but they're also in that safe boundary area, which is also really what makes that special. But really nice. Look at that. Look at the metal work.
Cooper Monaco
man hours on that Cooper Monaco. What a piece of rolling art.
Yeah.
Love that. That is gorgeous. The rivet work, just the love and care into that machine alone. Just beautiful. Great shots by TG there.
Yep. By the way, that we had Jeffrey O'Neill. Well, he is out in that birdcage just across the way from, or just behind this car that you're looking at right now. And I just wanted to give you an understanding of it, because it's one of 5 birdcages run by the famous Camaraderie team. Finished 5th overall at the 1960 Nürburgring 1,000 kilometers and competed at the 1960 24 Hours of Le Mans. So it's a pretty special car, as Jeffrey was intonating. Immaculately prepared. And it's been running in vintage for quite some time. And Jeffrey, it's like I said, every vintage race I've gone to, Jeffrey's run that car pretty much. Here it is, coming up after the 57. There it is. Birdcage. Beautiful.
What wonderful shots here. Great job, Tony.
1960 Maserati.
Right around now is when I swerve at Tony.
Yeah, I know. You've had your moments. He does like to get as close as he possibly can, but you're on to him now.
He does a brilliant job. He truly does. But yeah, They're getting the pace car out, going to get set up.
Well, he's fed well. That's the thing with Tony. If you feed him well, you never look back.
Yeah. We double McGriddled him up this morning.
Oh,
he's ready to go.
He's flying now. So our Group 3 action is on its way, 1957 to 1961. This is the Sterling Moss Memorial Trophy Race presented by Bonhams. And, of course, Sterling Moss, very much in our thoughts, sadly, passed away last year, and just a true gentleman and one of the greatest racing drivers of all time. And I don't think anybody would quibble with that.
No one, no walking soul ever would. And, yeah, they're an incredible, like you said, just an incredible race driver, but like you mentioned, human being off the racetrack was just a pure gentleman, obviously sorely missed, in our sport. But yeah, lived a great full life, was an amazing career. The man that created the four-wheel drift. He's credited with a lot of things, but that's probably the thing that I love the most is because the fact that he was sliding around those big Mercedes-Benz tanks of the era. And he's just a brilliant individual.
Well, ironically, he was an inventor in his own right. His house was filled with all sorts. He had his own elevator in his house, and suddenly it also caught him out because he fell down the shaft one time. But it did. It's a true story.
I believe that. No,
yeah.
Only you would know those things.
Exactly. It's well documented. But he had all sorts of things. He had a dining room table that would crank down to the floor from the ceiling.
Oh, right.
He had a dumbwaiter as well as the elevator. So he was a tinkerer of all trades.
That's
but fascinating. I would love to have spent an evening. I've spent a few lunches, but I would love to have spent an evening at Sterling Moss's house, just having him take me through all of his bits and gadgets.
Sure.
Because he loved it.
Yeah, I bet. I mean,
come here, boy. Look at this.
Yes, if that's your pride project and those are your prides, then that's the idea.
Talking of characters and lovely men to be with to talk historics, a man who's just been out on track will join us for our Group 3. He, of course, is the man we were talking about in the Jaguar XK120. And that was a car that won the first Pebble Beach race with Phil Hill back in 1920. And James Alder, 1950, excuse me, why did I say 1920? 1950, the first Pebble Beach races. They ran them for 5 years before they started building Laguna Seca. And here we are today. But James, you had a run, and by the way, you had a couple of moments we saw as well.
Yeah, I did have a couple of moments, and I had a great run.
Please do explain.
And I will. But we've got to watch this start
Yes,
here
we will.
Because this is a
get underway.
Great group. I see Ernie Nakasamu, I may not pronounce his name correctly, in Old Yeller. He looks like he's kind of gridded at the back.
Ernest Nakamatsu.
Yes, and then Jeff O'Neill is in the bird.
Yep, he's been up here already and had a chat.
Oh, that's great. Well, this is a fantastic group.
Here we go.
Of course, there's the Pooper, and that's the very first car that won the first race at the Laguna Seca, driven by Pete Lovely.
So the Pooper. It's a Cooper body and chassis with Porsche engine and drivetrain.
Hence
the Pooper.
Yes.
Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Super fast car, as you can see.
And it's pooping on the rest of the field at the moment.
Yep.
It's got 140 mile an hour top speed with just a mild 145 horsepower. So it shows you really kind of how light that car is and how agile that little machine is.
Yeah.
Well, as we get underway, and it'll get a bit more intense, but I do want to go back to your run. It was a superb one of the best I've seen you do.
Thank you.
Tell me about it.
Well, I was gridded fifth, and
finished fifth, I think.
Yeah, I finished fifth.
There you go.
I did lose a couple of positions to the Allard on 2 occasions, but one time when he went off, he ended up cutting a tire, and so the car got real squirrely. They went off again in 10 when the tire was giving out, and then of course I passed him and of course remained ahead of him because he didn't finish. But I was definitely trying to hold him back, and I was making my car a little wide on a couple of occasions when he was coming up on me. So I don't really call it blocking. I I refer to it as course management.
There you go. I was explaining how back in the early 50s when, in the day of the Jaguars coming over here and being imported, obviously you drove your car to the race. And I'd be interested to know both in period and what you do, because you carry on that tradition. You drive your race car from Reno, Nevada, and that's how you go racing. What do you have to do to effectively go from a road car to a race car? And I suppose not a great deal with an XK 120.
Well, you know, that 120 has stiffer torsion bars, stiffer anti-roll bar. I've got the engine in a very good fettle. It's a 3.8 liter. The original 120s were 3.4, but the Phil Hill winning car was bored to 3.8.
Okay.
So they do allow that. Now, I have single exhaust and dual carburetors. Now, the green 120 that unfortunately broke an axle yesterday, he has 3 carburetors on his. That's Bill Rookledge. But, you know, I keep my car very streetable because from my perspective, that's what this is about. You know, driving in the way and manner in which it was done back in the day. And when I first started driving the car to the track, I really didn't have a choice of a trailer and a tow vehicle. You know, the only way to get it there was to drive it there. Over the years, you know, my finances have improved and I could have a trailer. I could afford a trailer and a tow vehicle. But honestly, I get so much positive attention and or notoriety, it's hard for me to give that up.
How long does it take you?
Well, from Reno, depending on conditions, weather conditions, and traffic, I've made it in as short a time as about 4 hours and 20 minutes. That's the record, but it's typically about 5.5 hours.
We're looking at Greg Mayer there in the Sadler Mark IV, but we also saw that 1959 beautifully prepared Lotus 17 in traditional colors, just coming out of 12 and onto the main straight now.
Proven to be a very good race here, too, between Cameron Healy and David Swig. David Swig in that 1961 L1, you know, Chaparral being another one of those marquee marks out there, obviously, that is, you know, got such great history around it, has got such great dominance at some points, a lot of points throughout its history, Chaparral being as a brand. And so the great Jim Hall with Chaparral, so... And then you got John Hill rounding out the podium right now in that Lola Mark I. And again, Lola, you know, this is an early onset version, and it's a 1960 Lola Mark I that John Hill's out there representing. So
Lola Mark I is a wonderful race car. But you had mentioned the Sadler, and I had met and raced with Bill Sadler on a couple of occasions up in the Pacific Northwest, in Portland and in Kent, Washington. And that car that Greg Meyer's driving is really, really just a fantastic car. Now, I think this is Jeff in the birdcage.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Is that Jeff?
Yep.
It's timing and scoring has Jonathan Fiber, so that's
well, we'll see.
I think there's more than one birdcage out there.
There's 2.
Now, look at the Monsterati. That special was built by Bill Zanowski, and that's David Swig's brother, Howard. Now, I raced for many years with their father, Martin. And I saw those kids at the track when they were just little kids, you know, with toy cars in their hands. And here they are, David in the Chaparral and Howard in the Monsterati. And Bill Zanowski is here this weekend. I've talked to him on a couple of occasions. He built the 50s, then went on to get an engineering degree. Technology was changing so fast. He sold the car and went on with his life. And then in the early 80s, he discovered vintage racing, and it started to give him a whole new lease on life. And Bill found that original special that he built, dragged it out of the mud in Texas, restored the car, and then raced it for about another 2 decades.
Wow.
Before he sold it to David Swig.
I love that. Absolutely fantastic.
Of Mark Sainz here, that's in that Le Mans.
The
Lotus 11 Le Mans.
Yeah, Mark Sang is a great driver. I've driven with him many times.
He's holding a pretty wheel there. Gets to the hairpin quite nicely. That little car there, it looks like a little slot car out here on WeatherTech Raceway.
And I think 6th. That's Jeff O'Neill.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Look at him work the wheel there. Look at that coming out of 10, I believe.
He interestingly described it. I said, what do you like about it so much? He said, well, it's just a giant go-kart, which I thought was a little bit insulting to Maserati, but I get what he says. He said it's so much fun to drive.
Well, I'd love to be able to, drive something light to actually turn and brake.
This is Jeffrey Heller.
Jeffrey Heller?
That's Jeffrey Heller.
Okay, well, I apologize. What car is Jeff O'Neill in?
Number 8. They have Jeffrey O'Neill in number 8.
A whole gaggle of bird cages
there
out
you
here.
go.
There is. There's 3 of them total. There's 3 of them in total.
Did you all discuss why they're called the bird cage?
Yes, but feel free to explain
well,
more.
in case somebody missed it the first time, if you look through the windscreen of the Tipo 61, the Maserati birdcage, you'll be able to see the framework, a very intricate framework of little, like, half-inch diameter tubes that make the structure, and it's so tight, in theory, it would keep a bird in there, thus the name.
Yeah, and what was the thinking behind that construction? Because it is very intricate, and would therefore
strength and lightweight.
Okay.
Yeah. It's I believe a 2.5 liter double overhead cam inline 4-cylinder in that vehicle that is canted at an angle to try to keep a low aerodynamic. And it was an extremely successful vehicle. Bird cages were just fantastic.
Good little battle here between the 64 and the 39. Cooper T39 Bobtail.
Bob Hardison in that 1958 Echidna Special.
Oh, the Echidna.
Echidna. What is Echidna?
Sometimes called the enchilada.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's only 2 of those. And the Echidna Special, V8, not bad looking. 3. There's 3 in there. A gaggle of bird cages and I don't know what it would be called, a gross of echidnas.
And there's only
or a
3
full plate of enchiladas.
3 of those Echidna Specials ever built. So, yeah, that's special.
Yeah, it is.
That is truly special.
So a fantastic group, this, and one that I'm glad you came in for this one, James, because I know it's warm to your heart. Is there an Arnold Special or a Chaparral of these, which I know you're a Jaguar man, but which of these would you like to drive?
Well, I've only had the experience in the 120, and the owners of these cars offered me a drive. Maybe that day is coming. And there are some events where you can trade cars, and I wouldn't mind doing that.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Yeah.
Well, like you say, there's a trust amongst the fraternity here that, we were laughing about having young racing drivers drive historic cars. It's not always a good idea because they're used to paddle shifts and not really having to do anything. To actually understand an old car needs a little bit of work and time, doesn't it?
Yeah, but if they could work up to it, it would give them just a whole new feel for mechanical engineering and knowledge, and you can really feel what the car is doing. It's I think a much more pleasurable driving experience.
Well, Adam, you can attest to this. A lot of young drivers these days are now starting to take, because of the price point and because of the opportunity to effectively help a gentleman driver, a lot of young buck drivers who don't get, past Formula 3, let's say, are now taking to historics and starting to drive hard in historics. We've got a lot of young guys. I noticed that at Monaco, 18, 19-year-old guys who literally have grown up, often with a family of people who've been in historics, but are becoming handy peddlers of historic cars and then able to go into normal motor racing, if you will. So it's a kind of a different transformation to get there.
Oh, absolutely. I think it says a lot to the fact of understanding your mechanics of a car, and that's what, when you're vintage racing or racing something that has a time period to it and a history, and you have to drive something with that level of respect, then it only adds to your skill set. And I think more and more, even more and more people are recognizing that also as a stepping stone, and recognizing the drivers, when they are running in the vintage cars. And most importantly, I think what you find too is some really good endurance drivers come from the vintage stuff, because they're just very good at getting the most out of the car without an abuse factor. When you're talking about endurance racing, because it's such a long-term package out there. You can't be banging wheels. You can't be, knocking panels off the car. You have to be nice and smooth. This is a race for the lead right here.
Yeah, here are the leaders. Look at this.
The 166.
Yeah, the Pooper's been leading the whole way, but now they're in traffic, and with 3 minutes and 42 seconds to go, it looks almost inevitable that the Porsche...
What is the 166 car, Adam?
The 166 is a Chaparral 1.
Oh, is the Chaparral,
Yeah.
and that's David Sweet driving it
yeah.
then.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's the very first Chaparral.
Oh,
Look
it's a
at
matter
this.
of time, isn't it?
Well, I'm sure it's got more, it might have more acceleration going up the hill, but David is really working to get around it. And then that's the red Lola Mark 1, I believe, that's just going through a couple of back markers.
That's correct. Yeah, John Hill in that Lola Mark 1 doing a fancy job back there in third.
And that Lola is probably really fast going down the hill. You can see how the Pooper pulls away a little bit, but David Swig is a very, very good driver. And I'd much rather be in second position trying to get the guy ahead of me than being in first position looking at my mirrors.
I love the fenders on that Chaparral.
Oh, yeah.
That front
Yeah.
fender, very distinct.
Yeah, and that's part of the racetrack out there as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly.
That AstroTurf, that's definitely part of the track.
I never read anything about track limits here, so
No.
I think you're good to go.
Now you can see the Pooper is taking a very defensive line on the inside there. He's trying to prevent diving in on the inside. That's a slower line, but it's defensive. He's going to make that Pooper a little bit bigger than it really is.
Yeah, I think too with that little car you can afford that because it'll rotate. The Chaparral, a much bigger car, would need to make that.
No, that Chaparral is more like my Jag.
And the little Pooper, I wouldn't have worried about someone outbraking me.
Yeah.
That should be something you got in the bag there in spades with that little Cooper.
Well, we should get the white flag next time by for our Group 3. I hope you're enjoying this. This is absolutely sensational. We've got a good race at the front. We've got a great display of racing all through the field as we take a look at the number 11.
Well, and Mr. Hill there in the Lola Mark 1, I mean, he is working that steering wheel. He's sliding that car. It's a wonderfully balanced, light car. He's making the most of it.
Yeah, John Hill, very nice, low slung. When you're sitting there with in a car like that, it looks like your butt's almost dragging the pavement.
Well, that's definitely a go-kart with more body work.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah,
nice approach.
Look at that.
Good work.
Now, I prefer to be a little bit more inside. Of course, I drive over the rumble strips. That's part of the racetrack for me. But I've got probably more suspension travel than these small light cars.
Agreed. Yeah.
So they should be getting the last lap of the
right
white
here
flag.
It is. Yep. White flag is out.
Well, fantastic race. And this, of course, the Sterling Moss Memorial Trophy race presented by Bonham's.
Okay, now watch, here comes David.
Here he comes.
But it won't be in the brake zone. I assure you that.
This is going to be good. If you can go wide around here and then
slingshot.
Get a slingshot, get on the inside to the left, maybe. Come on, David, push it.
I tell you what, the Pooper's doing well. He's doing well to hold him off.
Yeah, the Pooper rotates so nicely at the center of the corner.
Yeah.
Whoa! He is pushing out of 3 and into 4. I think it's going to be the Ray Hall straight where he actually gets the chance, or maybe on the exit of 5 coming up. Through 4 now.
It's going to be a fantastic race to the finish. I tell you, Jonathan, the last 2 days, the races to the finish for the lead have been absolutely incredible.
Here we go. Starting to climb up here. Now the power of the Chaparral starting to show. Final lap. And he goes to the inside as the classic overtake for the corkscrew. Or getting himself ready as he goes through 6.
Very hard to outbrake that little Pooper. It's going to be really hard. And it got really a nice drive up the hill there. So
now
don't see it coming there.
It might almost be good if he backs off just a little bit to get a faster speed going down the hill. But that's where that Pooper's really going to excel with this lightweight. So it may
It's going
be.
to take a pretty big mistake, I believe, from Cameron, and he's holding a pretty wheel, but that's what it's going to take. But I believe Cameron's got this one in the bag as he heads from 10 to 11. He's got a couple more corners to navigate.
He's got this.
Yep. It looks like he's got it.
Well, David Swig put on a good effort there, but Cameron Healy is going to take that Cooper Porsche 1953, come out of turn 12 and hold off the mighty 166 of David Swig in the Chaparral from 1961 and take the checkered flag. Wonderful.
That is
beautiful job.
That is great driving.
John Hill will come across the line in 3rd place in the Lola Mark 1. There he is. And Greg Meyer in that Sadler Mark 4.
Yeah, Greg is a tremendous driver. And David Swig, you know, he normally drives the Monsterati that his brother Howard is driving, but I've seen Swig hang with the Meisterbrow car. Which car am I thinking of, Adam? You know, the front engine. Augie Pabst had one. Donna Roscoe had the Scarab.
Oh, the Scarab,
I have seen David Swig hang with that Scarab, and David is in the Monsterati. I mean, talk about, David and Goliath, and then Bill Janowski, that was the designer of the Monsterati. There's a great picture. He had great races with David Love in the 250 Testarossa. And there's a beautiful painting that I believe is called David and Goliath, or David and the Monster.
Yeah.
And it's both of them coming out of the corkscrew.
Look at the camaraderie here as they drive by, waving at each other.
And boy, what a wonderful
great victory.
Sense of relief when you see that checkered, and then you can cool down, and you know you haven't broken your car. That's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, really good racing here, too, all the way down to the finish. As they still cross the line here, finishing up group number 3 feature race, 1957 and 1961 sports racing cars. This is the Sterling Moss Memorial Trophy race, as Jonathan has mentioned, the great Sterling Moss. But beautiful, beautiful race.
Now, we said there'd be some surprises today, and there have been already, but there's more to come. I do believe we have royalty from Michigan coming down, flying down specially, and I'm talking Mr. Ford himself. Is going to come down and join us and race one of his own cars. But more importantly, we have a mystery driver that I've not heard of racing before now, Viscount Kevin Bertoloid Harris. Kev Harris, his name is, coming from England. First time entry into a cycle kart. Let's head down to hear what the buzz is in the pit lane as the Viscount himself is about to race for the first time in an historic race car.
I say, Johnny, Viscount Kevin Bertoloid III down here, stood alongside my pal Zach from Seattle, about to go racing in a cycle car. I am a late entry. Let's walk and talk, Zach. We were chatting yesterday, but just give us the heads up on these cycle karts again.
Well, you have to trust them a little bit because we make them ourselves, and they're about 6.5 horsepower, depending on what bolt-on mods we put on them, but we usually just keep it external, nothing crazy inside, so it's still easy for everybody to keep up and keep it very sporting between gentlemen.
And sporting racing is what this is all about, and Zach has very kindly said that I'm allowed to have a go. So I'm going to slide in, and this is, I can tell you, my first time in a cycle car. I got to find the pedals. Adam Andretti knows what this is all about. It's a bit tight down there. I've not got my race shoes on. There we go. I found the throttle. Let's go. So we're off and racing, 6.5 horsepower, a little bit heavy on the steering, motorcycle wheels, and apparently yesterday down the corkscrew they were getting up to 65 in these things. Coming up end of the circuit now. Oh, here we go then. To left. I think I've got Wayne in front of me.
And there he goes, Viscount Harris.
A full 6.5 horsepower round the corner then. Whoa! Whoa! And we're off. Now we're going.
Well, what an experience for our Viscount driver here. First time out in the Laguna Seca circuit.
I have done in a long, long time. Let me tell you, Johnny and Adam, Kevin Bertoloid III, is now a cycle kart racer. Adam Andretti, I'm coming for you.
Kev, I'm
Challenge
ready.
accepted.
I'm ready, Kev. I'm ready for you.
I think so. I'm ready for about 6 horsepower. That'd do me. That was brilliant. Well done, son. Nice work, Kev. He did the ragtime last year, and now he's doing the. He's going to move up. He's going to go through the whole. So he'll be racing you soon. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. As we look across the Monterey Bay. My thanks to James Alder coming up here.
Thanks, James.
We'll let him get ready for his long trip. He's got to make his sandwiches, pack his bag, pack the car up, pack the garage up, pack the overalls up, and drive back to Reno. That's how it goes.
One more night tonight, Jonathan. Say, just have a casual
Just to enjoy
evening. Yeah, enjoy.
Well, you've got to regale everybody with your 5th place.
Well, we'll see how that goes. But I just want to take it easy, watch the racing. Sometimes when my car is broken, I don't get an opportunity really to spectate.
Yeah.
And in the wonderful section above turns 3 and 4, where they have the wine pavilion there,
yeah,
that's a great place to watch. I'm going to hang out there for a while, pack up my stuff. I've got my accommodations for one more night, and I'll just have a leisurely drive home back to Reno tomorrow.
Go and get yourself a Good Boy Bob coffee.
Okay. Sounds good. Hey, thanks for letting me talk with you
Not
guys.
at all. Thank you so much for coming up. I'm
glad
glad you enjoyed your weekend, and it's always a joy and pleasure to have you up here. You're welcome anytime.
Thank you. Send me a text if you need me to come up later.
I certainly will.
Okay.
Thank you, James. All
right, Adam. Well, we've had some fun. Now, we'll have to come up with something now. Kev set the benchmark now. We're going to take a short break here from Laguna Seca. So relax for a couple of minutes as we'll be back. Don't go away, though. Stay with us. We'll have a little board up telling you that we'll be back soon. So stay with us here from Laguna Seca. My thanks to James Alder coming into the booth and Jeffrey O'Neill. But join us in a few minutes' time when we go back to our Velocity Invitational 2021. Well, welcome back to Velocity Invitational. And if you can hear the sound through my microphone here in the commentary booth, you will know that modern Formula One is out on track at Laguna Seca. And without further ado, let's head down to Kiri in the pit lane with the Formula One McLaren team. So, as you can see, Formula One roaring round the hills of Monterey, and that is a sight and sound that I cannot say is one I have missed, I should say, for a long, long time. Formula One does not sound that way. Liberty, if you're watching, let's get this sound back. These are the wonderful sights and sounds of McLaren Formula One in their heyday.
Yeah, very high revving, naturally aspirated engines. I mean, we're turning like 18,000 RPM here. These things idle at almost what the red line of a modern Formula One engine is, or power, as they call it now, power unit, but the internal combustion engine part of it, you know, they're only revving up to what I think like 14,000 now or 14.5, and these things I think idled like at 8,000 or 9,000.
And this is very special because for those of you who don't know, you cannot just turn on a Formula One car and set it in motion. You need at least 6 to 8, maybe 10 mechanics, engineers, etc. Probably a team of about 20 here from McLaren. And ironically, they are the same crew that Mika Häkkinen drove with in 1998 in this MP413 that at the moment Pato O'Ward is at the wheel of for the first time, I may add. This, the Constructors winning, championship winning McLaren, their last Constructors championship, and also a car that took Mika Häkkinen, who is here today, to his first world title. An absolutely splendid car, and also at the magic hands of the first Adrian Newey McLaren. Of course, that was the first real major poaching of an engineer, and it's when they became rock stars. Adrian Newey left Williams, where he'd had so much success, and McLaren said, we want a bit of that. And with the combination of David Coulthard, Mika Häkkinen, and Adrian Newey, McLaren and Ron Dennis took the 1998 championship with 8 races won by Mika Häkkinen and 1 by David Coulthard. In fact, in Australia at the beginning of the season, they actually made a faux pas, Adam. They lapped the entire field. Not a smart move in Formula One because they got first and second, and by lapping the entire field, everybody started scrutinising what Adrian Newey was up to, and he was up to all sorts, some of which was banned.
Yeah, that's the cardinal rule of racing, is you don't go out there and show that hand right away, but it is one of the hardest things, right? We all live with these egos to get behind the wheel in the first place, so when you tell us to back off, I think it makes us almost drive a little bit harder. So I am unofficially, since there's no there's no timing on these cars, so I'm unofficially actually put a stopwatch.
Good man.
Apologize for my silence there. I'll put a stopwatch here on Pato O'Ward just to see what he's going to be like. Car. I was privileged enough to be down there in the garage when he was being instructed on what happens on the steering wheel, what the going-ons are, and what he needs to know about no lift shift and no lift down shift and all those kind of businesses that he has inside of this beautiful World Championship winning McLaren.
Well, interestingly enough, there's a little bit of personal national rivalry here because last time a Formula One race, a Formula One car ran in California was 2 years ago, and it was another Mexican driver, Esteban Gutierrez, who is still currently with Mercedes as a team, and he posted the lap record at Sonoma, so I'm expecting Pato to get a lap record at Laguna.
Well, I'm looking at right now, I mean, unofficially, obviously, this is just my trigger finger here, but you're looking here, I've got him at a 110.66.
Of course. Yeah, something very special for both us and McLaren, I may add, And as if on cue, when I say what a special moment it is, we're delighted to join Zach Brown's joining us here in the commentary booth, who's been a busy man all weekend long. Welcome, Zach, first and foremost, but a delight to see your cars, and I know you love this as much as anybody else, to see the heritage on display doing what it does best.
Yeah, it's really cool, and cool to see the various drones you've got going on here. So
yeah,
Pato was excited, and ooh, that was a big moment right there.
Well, I just explained
Charlie.
it was another Mexican, Esteban Gutierrez, who came to Sonoma a couple of years
in the
ago.
other car, Zach?
Yeah, Charlie's getting on it.
That's Charlie?
That's Charlie, yeah. He just had a big moment
Yeah,
coming out of, that got his attention.
You had a go yesterday. How was it?
I did, and I'm going to have a go again this afternoon. I love it. It's unbelievable.
How often have you actually driven modern Formula One cars?
Not that often. I've got a Mika car that I've been in twice, and this is the second time I've been in the Lewis car.
Well, it's always nice to be able to get a bit of advice from the man himself.
Yeah,
I'm sure
exactly.
He's not unwilling to help out.
I
right?
was definitely having a fanboy moment being on the track yesterday with Mika.
Oh, that's hard not to.
He's a joy to be with. We were talking to Pato earlier in the weekend saying, do you spend any time with Mika? He said, as much as I can, we have a blast.
Exactly.
And how about this young talent that you have, underneath your fingertips right now, an IndyCar, and looks like a bright future possibly here going forward with McLaren.
Yeah, Pato's he's a hell of a talent. Great guy. Great to have in the garage. So he's excited here. So what time did you say he's doing?
He did a 110.6.
Oh, so he's trying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we were thinking. I just said
that's my trigger finger, but a 110.6 should be pretty close.
He's trying. I think he said an IndyCar pole was 111. So,
yeah.
Oh, that'll get the talk going.
He's definitely pushing.
And Zach, I hear you lost another bet. This time to Pato.
Yeah,
but a good one.
It's a good thing I don't run anything in Vegas, or I'd be broke.
But actually, a smart move on both your parts, because Pato is more than capable and should be at an Abu Dhabi test, because he's got all the right deal in terms of his preparation for Formula One. Could easily step into a
yeah. Oh yeah. He's as good as you get as a racing driver. So let's see how he gets on in the Abu Dhabi test. What's important for us?
Who else will run in that for you?
Our other main drivers, because it's a rookie test one day, and then an 18-inch wheel test, so it'll either be Daniel or Lando.
Well, that's good again for Pato to actually get some real
I'll get
feedback
a
and a chance to see how he's going. He said he'd driven a Red Bull before because he was in the Red Bull program, but this is his first time, am I right in saying, in a McLaren Formula One?
Correct.
Wow.
So he looks like he's having fun.
We were just saying, Zach,
he is.
The biggest mistake they made back in 1998 was that they showed their cards too early. And I think McLaren learned quickly. They lapped the whole field at Albert Park, and everybody went, what's Newey up to?
It was a great 98, 99. It's a beautiful looking car.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, beautiful sounding car.
Well, that was the first thing we said was, Liberty, if you're watching, please bring back this sound.
Yeah,
Have you had any discussions on how we can do that?
Yeah, well, I think the reality is with today's hybrid and the turbo technology and the various, the MGU-H and the MGU-K, I'm not sure we'll hear this again, which is a bit unfortunate, but, technology has advanced.
On a serious side, Zach, this is an important exploration for McLaren. You've had such a history here in the States. Obviously, you being American know that history. But also, McLaren have been through, not the doldrums, but when you were in your heydays between, the 80s and 90s and all through to 2008, those years are forgotten in the last few years. Now you're getting back there, and this year, absolutely. But it's important for you to let people know what McLaren have achieved, both in Can-Am, Indy, and, of course, Formula
One. I love the history of motorsport. And McLaren's history is as rich as anyone's. The different forms of racing and the different Grand Prix drivers and IndyCar drivers that we've had. Of course, as you mentioned, Can-Am. Won races here with Bruce McLaren, so it's a treat to be able to get out, some of McLaren's history.
Yeah, I was talking to Howden Ganley. I don't know if you know that name, but he came over with Bruce right at the beginning, and he texted me because I spent a lot of time in New Zealand. And he said, "Oh, you're going to be there?" And I said, "Of course." And I said, Howden was one of the guys that came over, and I think Bruce would be seeing what you've done with the road cars, seeing how the technological centre has developed. I think he would be very proud of what both you and Ron have kind of nurtured over the years to bring it to this point.
It's an unbelievable historic racing team, and it's a privilege to work with all the men and women at McLaren and to be able to be the quarterback and Ron always said he was the biggest chapter in the book. So I'm working on my pages now.
Well, for me, it's special, too. You know, I'm a local Indiana boy, so I remember Zach Brown's Track Attack.
Yeah, the good old days.
You know, and obviously what you did with JMI and just Marketing Inc. and growing that and what you've done and your give to the sport and to watch you grow into the position that you are, because I remember right when you were selling JMI, everyone was dubbing, this is the next Bernie Ecclestone, which is quite a
very flattering.
Yeah, very flattering, right?
Quite an accolade.
Yeah,
I'm not sure I'm
quite an accolade. But I mean, really, it's for not only as an American but a local Indiana boy. It's been really a pleasure to watch you. Bring McLaren back to Indianapolis for one, and I know that you've got a great friendship developed with my cousin Mike, and so it's but. Just really special, and we're all real proud of you and the good work that you've done, and really bringing McLaren, being a key part of bringing McLaren back to that prowess, getting that win at Monza, and that was special. I can't believe you drank out of that shoe.
That's brave. I'd do anything for a win.
I said that's why he's not at Interlagos. It saves him from having to drink out of a shoe.
Wow, if we would have saw the race, I'll be drinking something else today.
Right. I know.
And by the way, thank you for giving Daniel that moment. It made my weekend to see him in Dale Earnhardt's car, to see that grin go right across the passenger seat.
Yeah, he loved it. He's our guys are great to work with. They're a ton of fun and like their racing.
While I've got you, something I really want to draw attention to is this MP4 98T, which is basically the tandem car. Who, how, and is that developed, and how close to a Formula One experience is that?
I think it's very close. I mean, it's obviously a bigger, heavier car because you got two people in it, but it was developed off of this car, and it's got the same engine, so I think for the normal passenger, it will sufficiently freak them out.
Well, I know Juan Carlos, the King of Spain, has been in it. Yeah. Obviously, another king, Murray Walker, has been in it.
No, I'm sure I would get smacked upside the back of the head if I didn't ask. When is Uncle Mario going to get to be taking two-seater rides?
So Mario and I have discussed that. I'd love to find an opportunity like this.
Because how brilliant.
He'd
love it. Not only would he love it, but, I mean, the thrill that he gives. I mean, it's just, it's such an, when you have family members that wait in line to want to get a ride with the man at the speedway, you know it's a pretty special ride. But,
let's see if we can see a Mexican wave here.
Yeah. He's going to be a happy boy for sure. That's a special moment to find out.
He's definitely
making the first to greet him.
Yeah.
Exactly. Wow, he said.
Wow.
Oh my God!
Oh man!
Yep, and to think that's 1998.
Right.
Oh,
right.
really?
That's incredible.
Guys, let's head down to pit lane. Kiri's down there. Let's hear from Pato himself when he gets that helmet off.
Like the brakes, he touches, boom!
It's like a solid, you know?
Yeah.
But it's looking really good.
Well, guys, I'm so sorry to interrupt because I know you're enjoying the conversation. First of all, Mika, what was it like watching Pato take your car out?
It's brilliant. It's great that this car getting young driver to go for it, you know. And I drove it already a few days on Friday and Saturday, but you know I taken it a bit easy. But it was great to see the Pato going flat out, and it is a beautiful machine. It sounds good, you know. It looks good. What do you think?
That's what I was going to say. Sounds good, looks good. Did it drive good?
This thing is mental. Oh my God. I mean, I felt like I was way under what it's capable of, because it's just, you have to recalibrate your head. Like, it's that insane. This was really, really cool. I mean, and the noise I can't even express how cool it is.
Now, as a young boy, you'd have watched Mika, you would have watched these cars on track. Was it everything you thought it was going to be?
Yes, more than that. It's absolutely amazing how, you see the cars now and how, how crazy they look. And this looks very simple, but man, oh man, it's a freaking machine. Like, oh my God.
All right, well, you've got your young driver test. It's going to be a whole different world to that. But has that given you any insight into it?
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to get spoiled.
Amazing. Well, Mika, how much fun have you been having here? I know you've been enjoying it out on the track as well.
A lot of smiley faces. I feel that the people who are bringing the beautiful cars here, historical cars, new cars, they can really feel their dreams to come here, take their cars on the racetrack. And like I said earlier, everybody's smiling, everybody having a great time, and that's the whole story, you know. you know.
That is the whole story, and you've lived out most people's dreams, so it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much, Mika. We'll hand over to Kevin right now.
Lovely. Lovely, thanks Kiri. Well, I'm down here surrounded by some really, really special cars and two great guys who are just chatting to me all about it. Scott George and Gunnar Jeanette. Scott from the Revs Institute. We've got history right by our feet here. We've got Grand Prix cars and Indy cars, all Dan Gurney from the mid-60s. Just tell us about what's going on down here, because this is quite the show.
Yes, this is a great show, and these cars have probably never been together prior to this day. I mean, they all reside in private collections or museums, and the car we brought today is the '67 Spa winner that Dan won, and it was the last Grand Prix car built, and it's known as the Mag Tie car, made of magnesium and titanium, and it's a really special car. We don't bring it out very often. It's a very fragile car in the sense that keeping these going after this many years is a challenge, and we do our best in the team, and we're pleased to be back here and have Gunnar have an opportunity to drive it.
And Gunnar, as Scott was just saying there, this car doesn't come out very often. It's a very special car. It's kind of, it is one of a kind. When you got the call and they said, hey, what are you doing like on a weekend in November? Could you come out and get behind the wheel of this? How long did it take you to say yes?
About a millisecond. I've been very fortunate enough to drive several of the cars in the collection, and this is the one that I always, had my eyes on, and that, maybe someday if I'm really good, I'll get lucky enough, and Scott Miles will ask me to drive it, and it goes out every couple of years, but it ordinarily goes over to Goodwood and some of the events there. And so, you think of, other than Dan driving it, it's been Jackie Stewart and Derek Bell and Brian Redmond and Martin Brundle, and now I have had the honor and opportunity to drive it. And I mean, just talking about it now gives me goosebumps that, I got to sit in Dan's seat that he won the 1967 Spa-Francorchamps race.
Yeah, and I mean, what a history and what a list of names there to just add your name too. And as you were telling me, history is what this car is all about. The last American car to win at Spa, or all-American car to win in Grand Prix total.
So it was. It's very special in the fact that it is the only car for an American driver to win a Grand Prix in an American-made car. But it is actually the last American-built car to win a Grand Prix as well. Wow. It's been that long. Haas isn't quite doing it for us yet.
No, not quite, but it's an interesting year in the F1, and we're busy doing this, so I haven't been able to keep up with what's going on today in Brazil. But we're looking at Grand Prix cars here and there as well, but then just, for the folks that are walking around, just seeing a great show. Just behind them we've got Indy cars as well, and when you look between this and this in layman's terms, Scott, it's perhaps difficult for the public to spot the differences, but just to give us a heads up between the differences between the Grand Prix cars and the Indy cars, what are we looking at?
Well, primarily what you're going to see is the engines. I mean, you've got the earliest Grand Prix car here with a 4-cylinder Coventry Climax engine. You've got the latest Grand Prix car with a 3-liter V12 Westlake engine, and you've got the 3 Indy cars all fit with Ford 4-cam V8s, and they run on methanol. And the cars were obviously designed to go around, sort of oval circuits where Grand Prix racing was road circuits. But primarily it's the engines. Interestingly, the same designer designed the chassis, the monocoque chassis for all these cars, and they're essentially all the same size. And so what that meant was the Grand Prix cars ended up being a little bit heavier because they had to be equipped to handle these V8s. And so this particular car, as I said earlier, was made ultralight just to compensate for that.
Well, phenomenal history, and just standing here as we're doing this, the crowds are gathering all around us. So what we're going to do is have a chat to some of these guys down in front of the Sip and Savor Pavilion. Gunnar, thank you ever so much. Great to chat to you as always. Scott, thanks to you. Right now, though, Kiri is catching up with some drivers who are about to go out on the track. So what do you got for us, Kiri?
Well, yeah, we're in Velocity Lane now. This car, number 96, is one of the real special ones of this group. Okay, you're looking at the 1955 to 1965 GT cars. Now, this is a Shelby car. It would have been assembled in the UK without an engine and then transported to the States to put that big whopping V8 engine that you can hear in it. Now, in this category as well, as you hear them going out, you'll hear the incredible noise. But car number 20
is one of the most expensive Ferraris in the world. They are worth absolutely millions. So that's the Ferrari 250 GTO. And what you are looking at is two of the most expensive cars. There's around about 25 in the whole world, and two of them, including this one going past you, are here at Laguna Seca at the moment. Johnny and Adam, it's quite a spectacle.
Certainly is, and a beautiful roar as well as we get ready for our action from Group 4A. This 1957 to 1965. And all these cars, Adam, over 2.5 litres, so there'll be plenty of noise.
Plenty of noise, plenty of American muscle, very little British influence.
He says pointedly. I'm fine. I'm fine with that. You know I'm a Trans Am lover.
Oh, I know. I'm teased. You know that. No, that's a total joke. But there is a beautiful E-Type out there, you know, with the 379 horsepower, I believe. So that's pretty strong showing out there. But yeah, everything's big, thunderous, making lots of power, and these are always fun races to watch.
And as they head out on track, they'll do a warm-up lap behind the pace car, and then we'll have, as is tradition so far, a rolling start out of 12 and about a half an hour, 20-minute race. And looking forward to these guys in action. Shelby Crobers, Ford Shelbys, Chevrolet Corvettes, Ferrari 250 GTO, and that is a beautiful machine. Bizarrini is also involved in this one, and I'd like to have a look at that soon. And Ford Mustang, you mentioned that Jaguar E-Type. There's also an XKE out there, so there's two Jaguar E's out there, and an Austin Healey 3000S.
Yes, and also we have that beautiful there, gridded up in third position, the number 9 of Rob Walton in the 1965 Cobra Daytona. Not too many versions of those ever around. There was only 6 of them ever built, so to see one of those versions out here is pretty incredible. Lined up directly in front of him was yesterday's winner of this group race, and that's none other than Jim Carver, CEO of Ford Motor Company out there, motoring around that beautiful I believe it's a 1964 AC Shelby Cobra. So it's a rooftop car Cobra. So and then you got the open cockpit, Mike McGovern right next to him in the 1964 Shelby Cobra. But the Cobras are dominating the first 2 rows, and then you get to the Mustang GT350 of Forrest Strait starting 5th. And then you got John Fudge there in the 1965 Sunbeam Tiger, and 6th place Michael Doyle in the Jaguar XKE. 1961 is the year for that, number 99.
Yeah, let's just remind people, yesterday when we had these guys on track, we had a cracking race between James Farley and Jim Click with 264, 1 Shelby Cobra and an AC Shelby Cobra. James Farley, to give him his full name, a regular historic racer, but more importantly, the head of Ford. And so to win in his own car, that's pretty good. I've seen him in some of the SVRA stuff, but not seen him win. So that was probably a pleasing moment for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't see Jim Click cross the line here on my timing and scoring for this morning's race. So hopefully he didn't have a problem that they found last night, that they couldn't make him or wouldn't allow him to compete today. But nonetheless, we're going to come around for the green flag right now.
Here we go then. So it's Group 4A, 57 to 65 GT cars, over 2.5 litres, and a roar they pass our commentary position, and the green flag waves, and they head towards Andretti for the first time.
Boy, that was tight between Burt Skidmore.
Yeah, I heard you take a big deep breath there.
That was tight there up against the wall, and he did a great job of hanging on to that Isogrifo Lusso GT and keeping it out of the inside wall there. It's getting dancy out here in this Group 4A there, Jonathan.
Well, these are good drivers, very good drivers, and and you can't really hold back when you're in one of these cars. You want to race it hard, don't you?
Oh, yeah, because these things almost demand to be driven hard. If you drive soft on them, then they just don't react properly. It's a tight race up front. Govern there between the 2 Shelby Cobras.
So a cracking start, a 5-way battle at the front, and then a little group of 3. But already starting to get some good battles here in our Group 4A action. And like I said, James Farley winning yesterday, Jim Click second in another Cobra, and then Rob Walton in the Cobra Daytona taking 3rd place. Looking at the 45 going up the hill. Grifo, you mentioned, from 1965. Steve Schuller at the wheel from California. Yeah, great battle. Now a two-way battle as they've dropped the third-place man, and already we're starting to get a great little race out of this.
Absolutely. This is again, this is one of our best races yesterday. They come down the front straightaway here, accelerate up the hill. A little bit of advantage to the rooftop on the AC Cobra there. That Jim Farley is behind the wheel of the number 96, but what a beautiful machine that is.
Yeah.
I mean, that just looks like something Bugsy robbed the bank in and just took off.
Exactly. I want to let you hear the sounds and sights of Laguna at its finest. It's a beautiful November day here. And nice to see California all in green rather than the usual brown we get in June and July when it's traditional to come here.
Shout out to our wonderful camera crew out there just giving us these terrific shots. You know, it's like the first thing Zach Brown commented on when he got in here.
Yes.
Wow, it's like drone footage and great footage everywhere. So the highest of compliments from a man who runs commercial partnerships for probably arguably the most exposed sport in the world there in Formula One.
Yes, so you just got a compliment, Matt, from one of the top men in Formula One. How about that?
Rob Walton heading up the hill there, and I love that Cobra Daytona. That is one of my all-time favorite cars. I've always loved that car. To see it live and in person, this is one of the reasons, like, I love to wake up in the morning when that car's here at the Vintage Weekends. It's so rare to have it here.
Well, I was going to ask you that question. Growing up, and I mean, I know you've come from a very special family, but it doesn't matter what family you're from. When I grew up, I saw lots of Lotuses, and in fact, I saw Mario's JPS Special. That was my, that was my information. Bentleys, Rolls Royces, Lotus. What was your first sort of, view, or your poster on the wall, or whatever in your bedroom? What was it?
It was the 928.
Okay.
Yeah, I love the 928. That was one of my all-time favorite cars, and it was, I like the fact of Porsche building a V8 engine, because I was into, their, I like their V8 project. I was American, so I was into the V8, type configuration. So yeah, it was that was the car that was probably on my wall, race car wise. I'll tell you, it was usually local short track stuff with sprint cars, midgets, Silver Crown cars, or it's definitely my family's, Indy car stuff. I was privileged, obviously, to be able to root for people within my own bloodlines, and had some great, neat photos and really cool commemorative stuff.
It's not that well documented, but both Aldo and Mario did quite a lot of dirt track and midget racing.
Oh, there's a lot, yeah. I mean, it's that's where they cut their teeth from. My dad did it from 1959 to 1969, so had a 10-year-long career in the short tracks, and Mario continued his short track career into the 70s, and so it was back then you could do that. Back then you had that freedom to be able to do that. Now it's very, very specialized in what you have to do. I think there's people that could still do it if the opportunity arose.
See that Sunbeam Tiger that's coming? We had a close look at that yesterday. Yes. It is beautiful.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It is a wonderful piece of equipment. It's so unique. Like, everywhere you turn, and no hit here. I love a Cobra, and I love a 911. Everyone knows how much I love a 911, but you can turn the corner and you can kind of see one of those everywhere. But that Sunbeam Tiger, you're only going to turn your head and see it one area. And again, also with the number 45 there, that is the Iso Grifo Lusso GT, and that is a one-off car that that sucker was really close to seeing what the concrete tasted like here on the start.
Yes, it did. Yeah, and John Fudge driving that Sunbeam Tiger. And here's the 99 of Michael Doyle in that Jaguar XKE.
They got a great race going right there, don't they?
Yep. Side by side almost as the 45 goes slightly wide. But Skidmore in the Iso Grifo.
Drag race down the straightaway there into turn 2. Heartbreaking zone here. Going to be a little defensive in the Iso Grifo.
Yeah, there's two ways round that Andretti corner, isn't there? High and wide and cut back, or tight and slow. And I say slow, but slower.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of ways to race it. When it comes time for a qualifying lap, there's really only one serious way to get through it, and that's double apex diamond it off. But as far as when you're talking about, full on racing and you need to protect position. Yeah, there's so much creativity you can have down there, as that's one of the only passing zones that you're going to find around the racetrack that's cut and dry. Everywhere else has got to be a surprise.
Now, I know it is rude to talk money, but I know my dad called me last night and said, "Are you serious that Ferrari is worth 70 million?" And I said, "Yep, Bob, it really is." He goes, "What's it doing out there?" And I said, "Doing what it does best." In the hands of Jeff O'Neill, the organizer of the race, the 1963 Ferrari 250 GTO.
Yeah, this is what this event is all about, right? This is what Jeff O'Neill is up here sharing his passion for this Velocity Invitational about is every one of the cars has to have a history. That is a prerequisite. You can't just show up here with some replica. It has to have that on-track race history, and so he's out there in a very, very special machine, and as you said, it's really a rather large sum of money, and to see it in motion is absolutely spectacular and a privilege for us all. The ultimate privilege does go to both, not only the owner, Mr. Price, but also Jeffrey O'Neill here.
Well, there's another Ferrari 250 GTO out there, the number 10, delivered to John Coombs in the UK and raced by Salvadori, Graham Hill and Jack Sears. So when you start to mention those sorts of names, you start to realize the heritage. Like that, the Grifo Lusso, 1965, one of 6. The 6th car built of 10 in 1965. Now you're starting to see why, when it gets down to just 10 cars, why these are so special.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have 2,300 of these GT350s that were built right there. That number 26, that we have John Lindfesti out there driving and wheeling. Now, 2,300, you know how valuable that car is.
Yeah, exactly.
When you get down to single digits, it goes to a ridiculous amount. And there are plenty of single-digit cars out here, like the 1964 Shelby Cobra 289. There's only 5 of those that were ever built. But yeah, you're looking at only 6 of those Cobra Daytonas and only 1 of those Austin Healey 3000Ss.
And one of the big games, obviously, with the GT350s and any Shelby, to be honest, is there's a lot of lookalikes. But that you will not find here this afternoon.
No, you will not.
There's a lot of people who've made fantastic replicas and will sell them, and same with AC Cobras. But when you see an original, you know it's an original, and you only need to go to the Mecum auctions or the Pebble Beach auctions to see the kind of money they bring when you realize that it is the real deal.
Yeah, or show up at Velocity Invitational, and you know it's a real deal because it has to be.
It has to be, yeah.
Yeah, there is no option.
And I think that, Jeff, knowing Jeff, will stick with that. There'll be no variation on that. There'll be no letting somebody in because it's a favor. No. This is purist.
I do believe that is like that. There's Ernie Nagamatsu. That's a beautiful, beautiful car. That's that 64 289 Shelby Cobra that I was talking about. That is a very, very rare car as well.
And there's the number 7. Yep, Nagamatsu. 289 heading down the hill through Rainey. I love the drone shot through Rainey. Really nice.
Brilliant.
And as Zach pointed out, he, like a lot of people, are seeing these tracks this way for the first time. We've been doing it all year with the drones, and I've really enjoyed it because it's a different perspective. Plus, when you're watching racing, whether it be historical or modern, the drone gives you a perspective of where on the track if you like, the competition is, and under braking, how close the man behind or the woman behind gets to the car in front. And so it's a different perspective, and I am really enjoying it.
Yeah, it is. It's there's been a change for the lead here. There's been a change for the lead. Yep. As we see. The dominance of Jim Farley has been uphanded here just for a moment. We'll find out if there's an attack on the return here, but Mike McGovern has taken over the lead there in the 1964 Shelby Cobra, number 89.
Putting in his fastest lap on 140.6. That's not slow by any means around here. But it's a good battle for.
Really good battle because the lap times are right on top of each other. He was able to, do a 1 second faster lap time than Jim Farley on that last lap. But as far as fastest lap time and when they came in, it was about the same time. And you're looking at Jim Farley's fastest laps have been a 140.960 with Mike McGovern at a 140.662. Wheeling that thing. Look at that big opposite lock coming through turn 5 there. Up to 6.
So Velocity Invitational, Group 4A, Jim Farley in And the Shelby Cobra winner yesterday and looking for a second win today, but he's in second place at the moment, so work to do for Jim, but he might be able to use that traffic in the last 3 or so minutes. Down the famous corkscrew, dropping over 150 feet downhill.
Really tidy driving all day long, especially from the front of these packs, and it's been really, really clean. But it's been hard-nosed. I mean, really, really deep battles. So this was a deep battle for the lead. Deep into this race, as we've only got about 3 minutes, just over 3 minutes left in this event here as they round out at turn 12 and up the front straightaway again.
Forest Strait currently in 5th place, at number 79, Ford Mustang, 65.
Rob Walton hanging strong there to the last podium position. He's in that, again, my favorite over there, the 1965 Cobra Daytona. No mistaking what number that is from the back.
No. And you're right. I know it's a different back, but I do love it. I just love the shape of that car.
It's such an important car to the evolution and the history of the GT40 and now the Ford GT.
Yeah.
This was the beginning of Carroll abandoning the open cockpit and getting into closing everything off like that and making sure all the aero was proper. And he had the perfect testing ground in the backyard. I mean, Daytona back then, without the bus stop chicane on the back straightaway, you were on the oval from turn 1, NASCAR turn 1 at Daytona, or really in between the tri-oval and turn 1, all the way through the tri-oval. So he almost made a full oval lap on the original Daytona 24-hour sports car course. So it was definitely as much of an exercise in top speed as you would find on the Mulsanne Straight.
Well, our leaders are going quicker and quicker as the race continues. They both again put their fastest laps in that previous lap. So really good stuff. Mike McGovern leading the way in that number. And there's the 96.
He is hustling that thing. I love to see it. If that was open cockpit, you would really see all the work that Jim Farley's putting into wheeling that. And it's smooth. Clean as the white flag is out for this group.
Yep, there we go. So he may not have the double win in his hands this time. But Mike McGovern doing a great job in that 64 Shelby.
High, wide, and handsome there. Mr. Farley getting through the Andretti hairpin. Nice exit as he accelerates into turn number 3. So smooth on-off the brake here as you release. Want to carry as much speed through 3 as you can. Get a hard acceleration from 3 and 4. 4 is a nice fast turn. It's a good sweeper. Shouldn't be any downshifting. Really should be just a breathe out of the throttle and back into it. Coming through turn 4 and then 5. Cruises through turn 5 and up the hill to turn 6. This begins the uphill run all the way up to the corkscrew. Starts right there at turn 5. So the exit of turn 5 is so important. You don't want to ruin any of that on your exit of turn 6. You want to keep all that momentum so you climb the sharpest point of the hill up to the top of this corkscrew, and then obviously the big 5-story drop down the corkscrew. You flow down this corkscrew hard on the throttle, nice and smooth through Rainy Corner. Like to get back around mid-track there for a nice late apex through turn 10. Hard acceleration down into late braking turn 11. It's a hard sweeper. And this is the final time into turn number 12 for our leader, Mike McGovern. Bring him home there, Jonathan.
Yeah, absolutely effortless. It's great listening to you take us through that last part of the lap, though, to hear just exactly what he's dealing with. But it is going to be McGovern coming out of 12 and onto the main straight here at Laguna Seca to take the checkered flag in style. A performance, an immaculate performance. Got a second place to this car yesterday and today in the hands of Mike. The Shelby 1964 Shelby taking the win ahead of James Farley in second place in the number 96. Rob Walton taking third in the 65 Cobra. And Forrest Strait in fourth position in the Ford Mustang. Dwight Madison fifth in the Ford Shelby from 1966 ahead of Bert Skidmore. Great performance, and as you say, made it look easy, but it certainly isn't.
No. I mean, we've seen, when Mr. Farley's got the grip between his teeth and he wants to win one of these things, he's a tough guy to beat. So Really, really good job out there by all the competitors. Just giving a great show for you and I, Jonathan, and the folks at home watching, and all those lucky folks that were able to show up here and be a part of it live here with us. We appreciate each and every one of you.
Yep. I went out in the break we had a moment ago during and had a look around the paddock, and yeah, it's starting to fill up. The queue's starting to fill up, and the wine's starting to flow, and it's starting to become a festival, and I'm really enjoying it.
Giving a standard victory wave around the track, showing appreciation for our corner marshals. Our marshals here, you always have to, it's always very important to show appreciation. We wouldn't be here without them. This is volunteer, many times a thankless position, and they do such a great job standing out there in the sun, hours on end, really, and needs. You know, if a driver or anyone gets into trouble, they're there for that need, and they will, you know, it's a sacrificial role that they play out there. So we appreciate each and every one of you and the role that you play for us with any of these races that carry on, especially the vintage.
Yeah, no question about it. More to come, plenty more to come. And as you can see, the cars making their way off track, and we've got some fun coming up. As I look down the list of group racings, baggers and superbikes. Me and Adam looking forward to that. We'll explain all in a moment, but yes, we're talking two wheels. Moto America putting on a great exhibition for us. This is pretty much their home base. Moto America based in California, and Wayne Rainey, the president of the company, lives just across the way. So let's head down to Kev Harris, our new racing star. Let's see if all this racing's gone to his head, or is he just our very own Kev Harris?